I would like to reconvene the meeting and call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of November 21, 2017. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Here.
Councilmember Cordero?
Here.
Councilmember Moats?
Here.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Here.
And Madam Mayor Patino.
Here. City Attorney Trujillo, would you please give the report on the first two closed session items?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council held a closed session to confer with legal counsel on liability claims, and on the second matter, a conference with labor negotiators concerning labor relations. There is no reportable action for both items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo. The third closed session item was an evaluation of the city attorney and city manager, and I'm here to announce there will be no change in the current compensation for these two positions, and that council authorized the continuation of their performance-based pay. Moving on to our first order of business this evening, which is a proclamation, and Council Member Cordero will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proclamation for CAC, and here to receive this proclamation tonight is Pat Keelan. And before I read it, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce Pat to our community, to the rest of the council. I have the pleasure and honor to sit on her interview board, and she's a very impressive individual. She comes to us from Florida. She comes to Santa Barbara County with a great deal of experience in the nonprofit groups, and I think that Pat is going to be a very, very positive addition for the Community Action Commission and, of course, for our community. So welcome to you, Pat, to the county, to us, to the city, and, of course, for this proclamation. Proclamation. Whereas in 2017, the Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County, a local private nonprofit organization, celebrates 50 years of helping people and changing lives in Santa Barbara County. Community Action Commission helps over 12,000 people living in poverty each year by creating opportunities for families to reach stability. And whereas in the city of Santa Maria, Community Action Commission offers children's services that provide high-quality early childhood education and health-related programs that support family and youth services and positively impact vulnerable and at-risk young adults. And whereas Community Action Commission offers energy services that keep low-income households safe, warm, and nutritious services that provide health meals for the children and seniors. And the 211 helpline, which connects people in need to health and human services. And whereas Community Action Commission continued commitment to help make Santa Maria a better place to live for all low-income residents is appreciated by all who have benefited from the agency's programs and services. Now, therefore, our mayor, Alice Patino, for the city of Santa Maria, recognizes the 50th anniversary of the Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County in the city of Santa Maria and thank them for their services to the Santa Maria community. Mayor Patino hereto sets her hand to have this cause and the seal of the great city of Santa Maria to be affixed hereto on the 21st day of November 2017. And Pat is at the podium. I'll bring this down to you, Pat.
Thank you, Mayor Patino. Thank you, council members, for recognizing Community Action Commission's 50th year anniversary serving Santa Barbara County and the people of Santa Maria. We have a long history of getting things done in this community, and we are going to continue to get things done as we move forward. But I wanted to brief you tonight on some of the accomplishments that we've seen in just the last year. For instance, last year alone, 195 low-income homes were weatherized in Santa Maria, making them safer and more energy efficient. Another 853 low-income households received assistance with paying their utility bills which totaled over $215,000. In addition, in the last year, 98% of the young Santa Maria men participating in our Los Compadres program were involved in the juvenile justice system were still in school at the end of the school year. That's quite an accomplishment. In all, over 4,900 youth between the ages of 6 and 17 participated in the CAC's youth programs. But that's really just the beginning of the story. The CAC's Nutrition Services Program, for instance, made it possible for over 300 Santa Maria seniors to enjoy healthy, nutritious lunches at congregate meal sites or delivered to their homes in the last year, ensuring that they maintained their independence and even possibly avoided a long-term care facility. Our Nutrition Services Program also provided over 118,000 meals and nearly 41,000 snacks to low-income children free of charge. Of course, helping people help themselves doesn't stop with full stomachs. The CAC also nurtures the mind and the spirit. Over 500 children between the ages of 0 to 5 received high-quality child care and early education services through our early Head Start program and Head Start programs, ensuring they are prepared with the math, reading, social skills, and emotional skills needed to be successful when they enter kindergarten. We also promote their health and wellness with free medical, dental, and vision screenings. But there's more. While these children were gaining the skills they needed to succeed in school and in life, their parents were receiving the encouragement and support they need to finish their education and find employment. In the past few weeks, I've been so honored as I've come on board as Executive Director of the CAC to meet many of our staff members in our Head Start and Early Head Start programs who themselves were Head Start parents at one time. And with the support and encouragement of the CAC, they were able to go further and finish their AA degrees, in some cases their bachelor's degrees, and now have jobs with the Early Head Start and Head Start programs within the CAC. These are our true successes. Those individuals who, with the support of the agency, are empowered to change their lives, gain the education and skills needed to move from poverty to self-sufficiency. These individuals exemplify the true mission of the CAC and the spirit of the Community Action Movement. As the new Executive Director of the Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County, I pledge to you that I will continue this message, exploring best practices and model programs to ensure our services offer the best opportunities for success. And to do this effectively, however, I will be spending as much time as possible listening to you and the residents of Santa Maria to better understand not only your challenges, but what also makes this community a wonderful place to live. I look forward to working together with you to ensure that the Community Action Commission continues the mission of helping people and changing lives. We thank you for your support of our senior nutrition program, and we thank you for recognizing our 50 years of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and congratulations on your anniversary, and good luck with your new position, and welcome to Santa Maria. Our next order of business this evening is another proclamation, and Councilmember Moats will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Patino. And this is a proclamation for Small Business Saturday, and it will be accepted by Glenn Morris from the Chamber of Commerce. Whereas in 2010, American Express founded Small Business Saturday to help businesses increase their customer base, and whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 28.8 million small businesses in the United States, representing 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States, responsible for 63% of all net new jobs created over the past 20 years. And whereas small businesses employ 48% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas there are over 2,000 local small businesses in Santa Maria, and whereas statistics show that for every $100 spent at a local retailer, $68 will return to the community through taxes and payroll. And whereas the Chamber of Commerce promotes shopping local through ongoing Shop Local campaigns, which encourage shopping at local small businesses throughout the year and on Small Business Saturday. And whereas supporting local small businesses means strengthening the community, creating jobs, promoting commerce, helping nonprofits, and providing revenue for city services. Now, therefore, Alice Pacino, Mayor of the City of Santa Maria, hereby recognizes November 25th, 2017 as Small Business Saturday in the City of Santa Maria, and urge all the residents and businesses of the city to shop at small businesses and support local retail. And Mr. Morris, we'll have you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, just on behalf of the literally thousands of small businesses that make up the heart and backbone of our community, I want to express our appreciation for your recognition of Small Business Saturday. Obviously, it's important that we, as community residents, support these local business owners who support us. When you look around at where the resources come to support our youth activities, to support our nonprofits, to support our faith-based organizations. Over and over and over again, you find the names of those who own and operate small businesses and family-owned businesses in our community. So we want to encourage them so they will continue supporting our community. Obviously, we would love to get folks out this weekend, but more importantly, support them all year long. One day doesn't make a business, but it's nice to have a day to remind ourselves of the importance that these small employers play in providing services, products, and perhaps most importantly, jobs for our families and neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Our next order of business is the presentation of Going the Extra Mile, or the GEM Award, and City Manager Hayden will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Patino. Members of the City Council, Agenda Item 2C is the Going the Extra Mile Award. Since 2006, the city's recognized outstanding employees through the GEM Award program. The criteria for the GEM Award goes to employees that exhibit effective leadership on specific assignments, going above and beyond the call of duty, showing special initiative, creativity, and consistently embracing the city's mission statements. These awards are presented semi-annually. This presentation happens to mark the 33rd time this award has been given out to a city employee since 2006. The recipients this evening are Management Analyst Katrina Garcia and also our Human Resources Clerk, Ariana Reyes, from our Human Resources Department. They are being recognized for their initiative in helping develop this year's overall succession planning training program. I'd like to take a moment just to read an excerpt from the criteria and what the award committee wrote about them. The Human Resources Division of the City Manager's Office in the past year developed the city's overall succession planning training program, composed of numerous specialty programs in addition to dealing with their routine job duties and assignments. Management Analyst Garcia and Human Resources Clerk Reyes were instrumental in this effort. Those initiatives included launching the city's very own Toastmasters Club, of which Ms. Reyes is the president of Toastmasters. The Professional Development Association, known as SHIP. SHIP stands for Shaping Hardworking Innovative Professionals. It's an association that we have of city employees. The quarterly speaker series, in which we bring in speakers from the outside to give words of wisdom to our senior management staff and senior employees. Speed coaching seminars that we do on a quarterly basis, in which we pair seasoned managers with upcoming city employees and try to have them mentor them in a speed coaching manner. We do have a mentoring program that we've put forward, behind-the-scene tours of numerous city facilities, just to give employees an overall basis as to the city operations. So in total, these programs have helped coordinate employees interested in advancing throughout the ranks of the city. It's brought forward effective leadership, initiatives, and teamwork. In fact, their proposal has been recognized by the Municipal Managers Association of Southern California and received a statewide recognition. So at this time, it gives me great pleasure to award Ms. Reyes. Ms. Garcia is not in attendance this evening. She's out of town, but I'd like to call Ariana up, give her a certificate and the plaque, and thank her for all of her accomplishments.
Madam Mayor and City Council, it is an honor to be receiving this award today, and it is a great pleasure to work for the City of Santa Maria and under leaders that are so supportive and strongly encourage professional development. I can finally say I have a job where I go home and I'm happy about my job. I don't go home and yell into my pillow at the end of the night. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ariana, and you can thank Katrina also, because I know you helped me out so much. So it's great. You girls do a great job. So thank you very much. The next, we'll hear from a report from our Assistant City Manager regarding the new 820 area code overlay. Mr. Stillwell.
Oops. Sorry about that. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We wanted to bring to your attention tonight that the 805 area code is going to have an overlay area code on it at the beginning of the year. If you go to the next slide. So we have right now we have the 805 area code, which runs from north of Paso Robles down to south of Oxnard. And as the 805 area is running out of phone numbers, and so they're introducing an overlay for the whole area code area on December of 2017. And so at that point, there'll be both the 805 and the 820 area codes in this region, and people will be required to dial 11 digits, including the 1 and the area code for any calls made within the 805 area currently or for long distance calls. There won't be any additional charges for that, but it will require the additional numbers. So one point we have is the residents and businesses within the 805 area code will be able to keep their 805 number, and starting of June 2018, 820 area codes will begin to be issued within this same area. And so one thing we're noticing is it will require reprogramming of fax machines and maybe cell phones to have the extra area codes in there, so you're assured that your phone calls go through. And I don't know, maybe no one but we have fax machines anymore, but you have to make sure you have the 11 numbers in there. And so, it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. They've had these overlay districts, overlay area codes in other parts of the country, and they work well when numbers run out, but it does take some adjustment for users to remember to use the 11 digits. So we wanted to bring that to the attention tonight for the council, and you'll see that beginning in December with new numbers middle of next year.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
Well, I did mention to Councilmember Boydson that I see a new beer coming. 805.
820.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Hayden.
that will be a blended beer with 805 and 802. No, just a point of clarification. Any cell phones that currently have people's numbers programmed in them or have to be reprogrammed. And it's not good enough just to have the 805, but you have to put a 1-805.
One.
Even if you're calling your next door neighbor, it's still 1-805. So just wanted to clarify that. It's going to be very onerous on those people that own cell phones and landlines. If you have any type of automatic dialers, those are going to have to be changed. Garage doors that you can program as far as gates opening up in gated communities, those are going to have to be changed. So you need to really give it some more thought as it starts rolling out.
Someone will develop an app for that so you can do it all at once.
Okay, another complication in our life. Next item on the agenda this evening is the public comment period. Madam Clerk, could you please read the criteria for public comment portion of this agenda?
This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on consent agenda items, closed session items, or matters not otherwise scheduled on this agenda. Unless otherwise directed by the mayor, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment. Direction to staff may be given. However, state law does not allow action to be taken by the City Council on matters not on the printed agenda this evening. Once the public comment period commences, no other speakers will be allowed to submit a request to speak form.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
And we have 5 requests.
Okay. So that'll be 3 minutes apiece. Okay. Mr. Ernest Armenta, followed by Kathy Ortiz, followed by Melanie Little.
Ernest Stephen Armenta, I put down for the consent.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to wait?
No, yeah, if you would, I've got that
Yeah,
one.
no
here.
problem.
Okay, thank you. Kathy Ortiz, followed by Melanie Little, followed by Ignacio Sanchez.
Good evening. My name is
evening.
Kathy Ortiz, and I just want to say it's an honor to be here in front of the City Council. First, I want to thank the City Council and the City of Santa Maria for all the efforts that they have been making and the real positive changes on the issues of homelessness that we have going on here in Santa Maria. It's a big issue here in Santa Maria. We have a lot of homeless people, but we've been making a lot of strides this last year that I've seen here in Santa Maria. A lot of things have changed, and a lot more people are getting help. I'm here to ask tonight that we keep having these supportive services and all the other helps that's been coming along this year, because I know that people, chronically homeless people, any homeless person on the street, they can get helped and they can get off the street with some more services added around here. I know this because many years ago here in Santa Maria, I was homeless, and I got help. I got off the street with the help of some local services right here in Santa Maria. The wraparound services and all the other services that we have here can be really helpful to the individuals, the families, everybody that's on the streets. I'm talking about individuals and families here. I was recently I heard a statistic that the school district here in Santa Maria did a survey, and the survey came back saying that 30% of our students in the school, Santa Maria Bonita School District, are homeless, and they believe that percentage is actually a lot higher. So not just for the individuals, but also for the families and the children of this community, we need to keep bringing more supports. Again, I want to thank the City Council and everybody that works here, because you guys have been great in bringing those supports here to Santa Maria, and I just want to see them continue on. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ortiz, for sharing. Melanie Little, followed by Ignacio Sanchez, followed by Gail McNeely.
My name is Melanie Little. And like Kathy there, I was homeless in '96 in Santa Maria, and I got off the street. Well, I'm here for a different reason. I found out I have a real connection with nature, and so I did a lot of studying, and I ran across a fish in the Caribbean, and it looks like a American flag almost, only the bottom part has the round little white circles with the darker blue, and then also on the dorsal fin. And so when I was in Bulletin one time, they cut all the lower branches of the cedars there on that between Sylvain and Bulletin. Well, I collapsed in the street, and that's when a social worker picked me up. Well, the person next door moved in. He cut down a pine tree. I gained 100 pounds that year. I couldn't hardly walk. I've noticed that in Santa Maria, a lot of the trees the lower branches are cut down. Well, if our flag was modeled after that Caribbean fish, if you don't have that bottom rudder, the fish can't swim. And anyway, when the 2 yellow eucalyptus trees were cut on Enos and Broadway, okay, it's like a triangle. The blue spruce or blue gum eucalyptus are related to the yellow eucalyptus. And when you combine blue and yellow, you make green. So when those 2 were cut down, Santa Maria, I feel, has cut down a major positive for weather. And I'm really seeing that there might not, unless you know something that I don't, I think that, you need to reevaluate how eucalyptus are really, because California is a huge state. Trees are huge. They have bigger trees than a lot of parts of other country, our country. And that is because we are a weather here. Those trees were planted, for other reasons, but really, it helps the weather. And so I'm really concerned about that, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
Thank you very much, Ms. Little. Ignacio Sanchez, followed by Gail McNeely.
Hello everyone again, it's nice to talk with you all again. I would agree with Kathy that things have changed for the better since the beginning of the year, from what I've seen. It's a community, right? I've heard and seen myself that medicinal codes are being more enforced. Like it's being recommended and pushed. I'm not really sure by who, but I went through a camping ticket and a storage ticket. Now, thank God they didn't take my blankets and stuff, right? But I'm only here for 3 minutes, and afterwards I'm gonna go run to my brother and give him some clothes right now. And I've always felt like it takes the whole community to raise people up, like the churches and all that. And I don't agree with punishing people for falling asleep. I fell asleep exhausted one time and got woken up with a camping ticket. I don't know. I would like solutions a lot more than punishments. I feel that a person can get ahead in life if given the hand up, if that makes any more sense. But that's all I really want to say. We can all use that this holiday season. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Mr. McNeely.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I'd like to draw a connection for you between public art and youth safety. I've attended a number of meetings on the Planning Commission about public art and the task force on safety. I've learned these things that the students and the people who have been interviewed say there isn't enough for them to do that is positive in the community. There's too many ways to get into trouble. And what the city needs to do is invest in youth programming. That is the greatest expense, actually, but that's where you'll get the greatest result. I also went to the public art. Alex Posada and Dennis Smitherman did a great job. And what they first proposed was 1% from developers for public art. 30% of that was for education in the arts and mentorship. What I propose tonight is with 0.5% for the arts, all of that money goes to artists in the community, to train other artists in the community, to create art in the community that is expressive of each community. That's where the money should be spent. Not on buying public art from the outside, but creating it from the inside. And I would very much, I've worked in the arts for 50 years. I'd very much like to be a part of that committee that's going to be meeting at the beginning of the year to inform them on what we're doing. I have a group called Youth Arts Alive, and we're doing another pilot program this summer where we're going to Grogan Park, Atkinson Park, Evans Park, and New Love Center to teach art. Ruben Espinoza, Laura Susan Thomas, and other artists are going to teach practical art that can lead to work. This is what could happen if you're brave enough and creative enough to say, developers, if you want a better city, a more beautiful city, a more livable city, if you want us to have more development in this city, you have a responsibility to the city. And 0.5% on a development is not too much to ask to give jobs and mentorship to the youth of our community, to give them a different path in life. The City Council has the power to do that. Please use that power. The arts organizations don't have enough money to do all of this. Very little money. I just got a grant for $4,000 from the Fund for Santa Barbara to begin this process. But the city invests in so many things. Invest in our youth, invest in mentorship and training, invest in our artists. You can do that if you choose to do that. I hope you will.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. That concludes the public comment portion of this agenda. Before we move on, Mr. Hayden, do you wish to make any comments? Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 4?
Routine items are presented for City Council approval without discussion as a single agenda item in order to expedite the meeting. The consent calendar is approved by roll call vote with one motion. These items are discussed only on request of council members.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like everyone to know that there's a translator, Araceli. Could you please stand, and is in the back to assist anyone that needs translation this evening. And please see Araceli to assist with your translation. Anyone here?
We need somebody to say that in Spanish, probably.
Okay. La señora Lupián está aquí esta noche para, por favor, vea a la señora Lupián para que le puede asistir con su traducción. Okay. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. I have someone that wants to speak on the public. Oh, Mr. Boyson?
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I will be recusing myself on 4E, 4F, and 4G, and because of my affiliation with Good Samaritan and under advice of our city management, if any of those items are pulled or discussed, I should leave the dais. So I'm not sure what Mr. Armenta is.
None, so
Okay.
you can stay for those. Okay, so I have one person that would like to speak on the consent calendar, Mr. Armenta, and that's C, D, and J.
I understand you want to expedite the meeting more quickly, so I'll try to make this. On the first one is a 4C. It's the second amendment to the broadband service swap agreement. I don't know much about it, but I'm going to read the following. The agreement allows for the expansion of Wave's network in various parts of the Santa Maria Valley. As part of this agreement, Wave, I guess that's a network company, will share the city's conduit system and co-locate its equipment at the city's data center. Now, my question is, since we are the taxpayers are paying for all this networking, whatever it consists of. Now, if Wave is our contractor and we're allowing them to share it within the Santa Maria Valley, outside of the city limits, if we share it, Mr. Waterfield, are we receiving any kind of benefit in money? Are we sharing it with people who are going to pay us for, because let me start over again, we the taxpayers are paying for it, city residents, city taxpayers, and if we're going to share it for the Santa Maria Valley, just a simple request, are all those who are going to benefit from us, are they paying us? I'm hoping I didn't confuse everybody.
The answer is a simple yes, but I'll have Mr. Hayden explain that.
Madam Mayor, my suggestion is I can take down the questions that Mr. Armenta has, and then
Okay.
at the conclusion of his questions, staff can respond back to him, because I'm
Okay,
sure he has
great.
other
Absolutely.
questions.
Okay.
Second one is the second reading of the massage ordinance.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't here, but I watched the broadcast and I rewatched it over and over again, Mr. Hanson. And Mr. Cordero made the statement. He said that, if I got this right, the police department can walk into this business, and that's the industry massage, that they can walk into this business without probable cause, without a warrant, and into the building and search it. Now, I understand that that's, you may correct me, but you as council members are not police officers. So I think Mr. Hanson, Chief Hanson and the police department, if they have any concerns, they should come up and speak and let the public know, because even if it ain't a massage business, any business, there are rules that police officers have to abide by. They cannot just walk into any business and search it. Second is the concern came up that you wanted this business to not ever have their doors locked. Now, as a business owner, that's our prerogative, whether we want to have our front door locked. The last person that should be giving us orders is the government. So my question is, Mr. Chief Hanson, if he has any input, if he does not, hey, it's okay. I just want to make sure that when you enter a business, you must have probable cause. And if you don't have probable cause and you want to search it, you go to the courts and you get a warrant. Next on the one is Solomon Summit Interchange at Los Flores Ranch. This is not I don't need an answer, I want some clarification. This is that landfill 7 miles outside of the city limits. So we're going to contract, I think it's $1,158,000. That's a lot of money to be spending out there. I think the county should participate since they're going to benefit from it. They do. Because I don't go out there, and I'm pretty sure no one goes out to that Los Flores Ranch, city residents. Some of us don't even, some people here don't even know we have a park out there. So I think that if, just a comment, that if we're going to fix the roads out there in the county property, that the county participate. I'll end by this. The subcontractors for this project are Toast Grading and Paving, Grover Beach. Toast Construction, Grover Beach. S.E. Chambers Construction, Santa Maria. Central Coast Fence Company, I guess, Grover Beach. I said this before and I'll say it again. Santa Maria companies come first. Of course, if they're not bidding on the project, hey, that's their loss. But we should go the extra mile to ensure that Santa Maria companies come first. They have to put a bid. We should encourage them and tell them, this is your money. We have jobs here for your workforce. Put bids in. Try it. I'll make it very clear. I have issues with outside companies doing work for us. Santa Maria first, Santa Maria second, and Santa Maria third. Thank you for letting me speak on the consent.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Mr. Stillwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'm happy to respond to Mr. Armenta's questions. The first one related to the Wave broadband agreement. We're really excited about that agreement. For years, we have been putting empty pipes in the ground when we tear up the ground in the hopes that we will be able to get better telecommunications for the residents in the community and for the businesses in the community. It's been an economic development strategy and also something the city can use for the communication between the city facilities. And So we had Wave Broadband come forward to us and say they want to use those pipes. It's an asset to them. They don't have to tear up the streets to put in fiber optics into our community. And so in exchange for them using our assets that we've been investing in over time, they'll provide high-speed internet services to our community, and we'll provide it directly to the city to connect our police department, our public safety, and with the other services. So we're excited about that agreement. It's a forward-looking agreement that we think will be a great opportunity for businesses in our community to have higher-speed internet and for residents to be able to, again, have better telecommunication facilities. And regarding the massage inspections, the businesses are, as the ordinance written, the businesses are public businesses, and like any other public business, the public's free to enter them. And so what we require is the massage business to provide certain information to the public who enters the business. So whether it's law enforcement or any other member of the public, they have a right to enter the business and review that information. And then the Los Flores interchange, a condition of approval of the landfill a decade ago or so was to improve that interchange, and so that's what this agreement is moving forward with for the council tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Stilwell. Okay, now, are you leaving the dais, Mr. Boyson? No, you don't have to leave the dais.
I just
Okay.
need to recuse myself from 4
Okay.
E, F, and G.
E, F, G, okay. Ms. Waterfield, did you have any?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar without E, F, and G.
And I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the exception of E, F, and G. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats? And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor, I'd like to approve consent items E, F, and G.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second to approve consent items E, F, and G. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson?
Abstain.
Councilmember Moats? And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next order of business is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will revisit recommendations of the Planning Commission to approve a negative declaration, a general plan land use map amendment at 402 Farnell Road to designate a 1.8 acre site from light industrial to commercial professional office land use classification, and 3, amend the zoning map for the 1.8 acre site from planned development light manufacturing to commercial professional office zoning district.
Staff report is to be made by Director of Community Development, Mr. Ng.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a land use request and a zone change for 402 Farnell Road. You've seen this before. Came before you back in February and again in June. I'm going to provide a brief background, and again, this is the aerial for the site. It's on the corner of Farnell and Cook. It's currently the location of some county education offices. This is the existing land use and zone change. It's the request is to change the land use from light industrial to commercial professional offices. And for the zoning, again, M1 light industrial to commercial professional offices. This is a site plan of the proposed request. Again, it's currently location to Santa Barbara County of Education. And there's a smaller space that's vacant, intended or requested for CHC. This is a street view of the project site, another street view of the project site. So some background, back in January, the Planning Commission voted 3-2 to recommend approval of the applicant's request. This came before the City Council in February, and the City Council voted 4-1 to continue the item to a future date until a parking agreement can be secured with a nearby church. In June, the applicant, Mr. Sabani, submitted a copy of the parking agreement between CHC and Iglesia de Cristo Church for 20 additional parking spaces. On June, you may recall the City Council had a hearing for consideration of the land use requests with the submitted parking agreement, and the members of the council had continued concerns regarding parking as well as potential pedestrian safety concerns. A motion was made to deny the project, and the motion failed for lack of a second. Following the meeting, the applicant asked for a legal interpretation for the City Council's non-action, and it was interpreted by the City Attorney's Office that the non-action was a failure to act. And since the legislative body has failed to act, it can take action at a later time as opposed to waiting the 2-year period as would be required for an action of denial. So because of council's non-action at the June meeting, the applicant is requesting that the City Council provide final action on this item through a deciding vote. A little bit of information just to refresh your memory. 84 parking spaces exist on the site. Santa Barbara County uses 40 spaces, leaving 44 spaces for the remainder use. The applicant secured an additional 20 spaces in agreement with the church, and future uses and parking will be regulated and enforced through a plan development permit with the Planning Commission. The staff report provides the original recommendation, but also provides an alternative. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving the request, amending the general plan land use and zone from light industrial to commercial professional office. The alternative is to deny the request based on the finding that the general plan and zone change is inconsistent with the city's general plan because the lack of sufficient parking for the site would result in interference with and impacts to adjacent property owners as well as other safety concerns. This is staff's report and presentation. Welcome any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Ring? None? Mr. Boyson.
Mr. Ring, as I understand it, we have done some investigation on how the county education offices have came to be, and I understand there were never any permits that we know of that were issued.
There were not any based on our investigation and research.
Right, and even the tenant improvements, I don't think we even show any permits for those.
Not that we can find.
And as I understand it, we believe that this, because being a separate agency as the county education office, when they build a school, they don't require coming to the city of Santa Maria for building permits. They have their own building codes that they're required by the state to follow. Is that correct?
State property, state uses do not go through city processes. Now, this was a lease, but we still don't have any evidence that they obtained permits or approvals.
Thank you.
Dr. Moats.
Yeah, Mr. Ring, is this issue really something that's viable, or is this kind of a moot point? I mean, has the ship left the port? I mean, if we voted yes on this, is it a viable transaction?
That's something that the applicant can probably respond better to.
Okay. Can you go back to the parking again? You meant you had a slide that showed parking issues.
Thank you.
Can you, one more slide? Okay. What time of day was that taken?
I took this picture, it was about 3:30 in the afternoon.
I see an awful lot of unused street parking there. Do you?
There is available street parking.
How much available street parking is there?
That's difficult to quantify just by looking at this picture, but yeah, I would have to go out there and do some walking and measuring, but you know, given that a typical parking space in terms of street parking takes about 24 feet in length, so you can take the length of that street divided by 24 feet. Yeah, there could be 20 spaces, but that's just a guess. Mr. Sabani may be able, the applicant may be able to shed some additional information.
Okay, can you go to the slide that has the numbers that you put up on parking?
There is a slide on parking.
The County of Santa Barbara says that they only need 40 spots. Can they do that?
This is what Santa Barbara County stated, that they only need 40 spaces.
Well, if they only need 40 spaces and there's 84 spaces, that leaves 44 spaces, right?
At least 44 spaces for the remainder use, yes.
And how many spaces does Mr. Sobhani need?
In conversations with the proposed tenant, CHC, we did a review and evaluation of what that use would require in terms of their parking needs. And they contended that they would be able to, that 44 spaces would be sufficient for their need. Based on the last public hearing, the members of the council still expressed concerns and asked for a parking agreement, and so they came back with an agreement for 20 additional spaces. The applicant, and in conversation with CHC, believes that 64 spaces is sufficient for their use.
There was a question about safety crossing the street. If somebody were at Walmart CHC and wanted to cross the street to go to this proposed facility, how would they do that?
They would do so by crossing Blosser and using the crosswalk at the signal.
Okay, so they'd cross at Cook and Blosser, and that's a signalized intersection?
It's a signalized intersection.
And that has a crosswalk? And that has a crossing electric sign that says when it's safe to cross?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Any questions? Mr. Ng, is the applicant here? Wishes?
The applicant's here.
Okay. Mr. Sabani, would you like to make any additional comments?
Honorable Mayor, Member of Council, my name is Morris Sobhani. May I respond to some of the question that the council member brought first? As far as the permit, original permit, this was the issue came up before, and the city planning department could not find any record. I became very curious of why there is no record, because we have done many improvements, all of them with permits, and city planning department has allowed us to go with the permit. These are $500,000, $300,000. We got permit for every one of them. So after this thing came up, I went to the city planning department, looked at their file. Strangely, I discovered every building in that neighborhood, they transferred the file electronic from paper to the electronic file, except this building. There's a zero record of this building except what I have submitted in the past 10 years. So I became very curious. It was not Santa Barbara County Education. It was Golden State University they had originally started. So I have, as a civil engineer, strongly believe when they were transferring the paper file to electronic, they were scanning it. There is another building next door which is identical to this building. They took that file which exists and this building doesn't have it. I think that's the only solution. I don't believe a county government or Golden State University go to a multi-million-dollar building and no permit, no requirements. So that's the only answer I have. So I'd like to see if the city council or city administrator to go back and find out what happened to the paper on this building, to the maps of this building. It's not there. And Mr. Yin, could you look at it? And there's zero record except what I have done. Secondly, the question that Councilman brought up as far as the street parking. We have a map, that same map I showed additional 44 parking along the street at 22 feet per space. So these spaces available, we showed it to the Planning Commission and Planning Department. They said, no, you cannot use that as part of satisfying the requirement. That's the reason this whole thing came up. And then council, in their wisdom, said, go additional 10, 12 parking spaces. We obtained 20 parking spaces. And we have them. You asked the question if these are permanent. Yes, we will satisfy the city attorney's requirement, make them permanent, that goes with the property. We have the document, it's there available. That's no issue. As far as the question you brought up as crossing Gloucester Road, this facility, where is it located? First of all, before this come before the council, City Planning Department required that we provide the list of property owner within so many foot radius. There were 30 property owners. City, we gave the list to the county, we provided the stamp, and they notified all of them. Nobody objected to this project. In fact, we spoke to many of the adjacent property owners. They did not object. In fact, they were very supportive because they said, oh my gosh, county education has been there. There has been no harm, no conflict. To begin with, that whole street has 2 property owners actively has parking activity. All day there's but less than 100 cars go back and forth. It's a very secluded area. And there is no impact. I think that's one of the reasons the planning department, before we start the whole thing, they evaluated the area and they see no negative impact. There's no problem. Everything is developed. There's nothing vacant to be developed later. You could say, well, this might create some more problem, but it is not. Everything has been developed. So I feel approving this project will not create any kind of negative impact in the neighborhood. The only thing it will do, you provide a space for mostly needed service, health service of the most needed people in the community. By you denying it, you create a vacuum, and these people have no space. And you know CHC has provided tremendous service in the community. In this part of the area, they do not have one. They have one up there. They can't afford to pay $4 or $5 a square foot where they're at. Besides, if they approve, if they have to go there, that other space, these are the only people objected to this property, to this, what they call it, to this change of zoning. And they do not have the adequate parking. Even if CHC is willing to pay the $4, they're 12% short on the existing operation. So there is no other space available. So, you know, you have to evaluate it based. First of all, we have demonstrated there is no impact as far as the traffic and so forth. We are taking care of it. Secondly, by doing this thing, you are not causing any problem for anyone. People crossing Gloucester Road is a signalized intersection, traffic signal. Councilor Cordova talked to me one time and said he was concerned about people jaywalking in the middle block. One Saturday I came up there at Santa Maria. I spent 2 hours sitting in the parking lot. That jaywalking is going on right now. And the reason being because there's a shortage of parking on that side. People park on this side, walk across. So that we will not be creating that problem. That problem exists right now. So I ask you to please consider approving this project because there's a need for this CHC providing help for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sabani. Any further questions of Mr. Sabani? Madam Clerk, do you have any written correspondence?
We do not.
I'd like to open up the public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak in favor or in opposition?
We have 2 requests to speak, 1 opposed and 1 undetermined.
Okay, thank you. Ernest Armenta, followed by Gil Palacios.
I'm Ernest Stephen Armenta, City of Santa Maria. There's several issues that need to be answered. First, the church is required to have a certain amount of parking. Now, if they're going to give up a certain amount of their parking, to CHC, then the church or the property owners have to come back to the city and go through the permit process over again. Because we require that the church have a certain amount of parking. And if they're giving up parking, then they're not in compliance. That means that they have to come back and get another permit or lower the occupancy or the attendance of their church. Second, if this project is going to be approved, Mr. Sabahani and CHC will participate in funding a light and crosswalks at West Boone and South Blosser. Cook and Blosser is not adequate and will not solve it. If you ever, and I would encourage you, come out of the Pueblito and come right there on Boone Street and try to make a left-hand turn to go back to Main Street. You're blindsided. Everybody's going 40, 45 miles an hour. So if it's going to be approved, Mr. Boyson, you have, because let's get to the bottom of it. He wants this lease because it's profit, money. He's leasing his property. There's nothing wrong with that. He owns the property and he wants to make a profit on it. Well, if you're going to allow, if he wants to make a profit, you're going to have to put out. And that means that you are going to put lights and fund a crosswalk on Boone Street. There are significant impacts of allowing CHC to go there. It's busy. Second, though the state does not need permission or need to get permits, you brought this up, Mr. Boyson, the state doesn't have to. Okay, we can't force them to, but we can make the property owner, even if they're going to lease to the state. There's some way that Mr. Trujillo and Mrs. Malenkoff can come up with, that's what you hire attorneys for. They can come up with a policy and language that has legal standing to say, yes, the state, you may not need a permit, we can't require the permit, but the property owner, yes. So I'm not either for or against. I'm just saying that Mr. Sabahani and CAC must participate in funding lights and a crosswalk on Boone Street. There are impacts. Second, the church has to come back. Mr. and Mrs. Garcia have to come back and we put a new permit because we require them to have some amount of parking. Thank you very much, Ms. Patino.
Thank you. Mr. Palacios?
Gil Palacios, 2353 South Broadway, Santa Maria. I'd just like to reiterate our letter. We are in opposition to this project. We think the staff report is very favorable and very short on parking. It's kind of interesting that a user of 28,000 square feet can state a use of 40 spaces, which is substantially less, maybe 25 to 50% of what city code is. It's a large variance, and of those spaces are not compliant with city ordinance standards. Most of those are compact spaces. They aren't of the regulation size. Normally, city parking or street parking isn't allowed to be considered as part of your parking count. It goes into the factor of what a facility needs. Everybody has street parking. The proposed use is substantially less than what would normally be required, and not by a few percentage. We also have the concerns of the added crosswalks, people crossing the street that we've all talked about. So I just wanted to come up and say we are in opposition of the project. It does seem like we do not have enough industrial land in the city. There's less and less every day, and this seems to be a viable industrial area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palacios. I'd like to close the public hearing and bring this back to the council for discussion or a motion.
And Madam Mayor, could I ask a question?
Sure, Mr. Boyson, I'm sorry.
Mr. Ung,
Okay.
if this were a new project coming in on land that was zoned for CPO and they were proposing a 28,000 square foot building as this is, how many parking spaces would we require? What would be the city?
142.
142, and currently there are 84?
84.
84. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Moats?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at this project, even if Mr. Sobhani's project weren't going in, I still think it has merit to change the land use and the zoning. Already it's being used for a school, which is not a manufacturing zoning. And what sort of manufacturing entity would want to interpose themselves between a school on either side? But as far as Mr. Sobhani's project goes, you know, the city, I think, tries to make itself business-friendly. And here we have a businessman who's trying to lease some property he has, and another businessman running CHC who wants to lease that property, and they enter into a nice contract. And we're sort of blockading it with some of these regulatory things that I think, you know, with a little creativity, we might be able to get around. It sounds like the parking is a big deal, but, you know, I've been over there several times, and there's so much street parking. And when I go to my dentist, I always park in the street in front of his office. I've never used his parking. So I know that patients do use the street. And even if they didn't use the street, if the school limited itself to 40 spots, there's already adequate parking for CHC to go in there. And the safety issue, you know, there is a signal. I suppose there's a chance someone might jaywalk and be injured, but there's a chance on every street in Santa Maria that that might happen. So after considering this, I've decided that I'm in favor of all of this land use change and the rezoning.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Cordero?
Mayor, as I recall, regarding the park, I'd like to address the parking. As I recall, when they acquired the additional parking, it was mentioned that the use of that parking would be during times when church was not in session. So the church needing the parking spaces, as Mr. Armenta alluded to, and the business using those same parking places were kind of at opposite ends of the clock, if you will. They are not to conflict. The business would be closed during some of those periods of time. Now, what kind of did it for me was we had an employee, I believe, that was here and testified on with regard to this. And I'm not positive, I might be wrong, but I think Ms. Waterfield asked him a question about, isn't there any space where you are? And I believe his answer was, yes, there's space where we are to rent additional floor space there, but I don't know why they, meaning CHC, I don't know why they don't want to rent that space. Now, tonight, I'm hearing that there's not enough parking. I don't recall hearing there's not enough parking in the current off-street parking lot where the other facility is at. And this was the first I recall hearing about the lack of parking spaces there. And Dr. Moats is correct that this danger could occur in any street in the community. My feeling is that this particular street, which I'm sure we all travel on it at one point or another, offers the additional danger because the vehicles are moving at such a rapid rate. I think it's just a question of time. I put it once again, it's just a question of time at any street, as Dr. Moats says. But I believe the danger is real, and I don't think we can educate a whole culture that they should use the traffic signal. So therefore, I feel like we're obligated to inject ourselves into the public safety for crossing that roadway, regardless whether they're going east to west or west to east. I would assume that once they cross it one way, they're going to have to cross it to come back, and probably would use the same path. So that's what did it for me, was when there's space available where they are, yet I hear tonight, which kind of changes the dynamics a little bit, that there's not enough parking there already. So adding to that, assuming that we would have the same need, would be an additional 40 some odd, 60 some odd parking spaces that are already not there. So it does create an unusual problem for us, and I'm still deciding here to. I'm not as definite as Councilman Moats.
Did you have any comments, Ms.
I do.
Waterfield?
I have a couple of comments. And looking at the light zoning, the light industrial zoning, which is very limited in the city of Santa Maria, it can become compatible, usage can become compatible to where the school is right now or where the county buildings are right now. That is, to me, light industrial zoning is a commodity in the city of Santa Maria, and we're always looking for those locations for certain people. But it is the safety, it is the concern, because not only are pedestrians going to be walking across the street, they're going to be having children, and children will slow down a person trying to cross the street, especially on Boone and Blosser. Those cars do go fast. I'm just, I don't want to make a decision that later on down the street, if something happens, I allowed it to happen, because that safety concern, I really believe it's not if it's going to happen, it's going to be when it's going to happen, because no one really follows the traveling limit down that road, and everyone's always moving back and forth. That Cook and Blosser lights are not going to make everyone go down that road. We also have a brand new project going in behind Walmart, which will bring in more housing, will bring in more people, more children, more residents that will use that facility across the road. And to me, that just really concerns me. So I will not be voting in favor of this
I'd like, did you have any comments?
I do,
to make?
just
Okay.
a couple of comments, and I don't mean to reiterate comments that I had at the first hearing, but basically just summarizing, I don't think we can do anything about the current use. Santa Barbara County Education Offices has become part of this usage, whether they're exempt from city regulations or not. I think that's a gray area that is probably best left unanswered at this point in time. But it doesn't make. Mine comes down to one basic premise. It doesn't make sense that we would waive requirements for a change in zoning when we wouldn't waive those requirements for a new project. I mean, a new project that comes in here, we would require 144 spaces, 142 spaces. There are only 84 spaces here. So, and we, as far as the street parking, we really don't have any idea of what change of use of some of these adjacent properties would be. I mean, currently there's mini storage across the street. I mean, that could absolutely change. I mean, if, as Ms. Waterfield says, as light industrial land becomes more and more valuable within the city of Santa Maria, it could possibly get to the point of where that becomes a much more intense use of that property, and they would tear down the mini storage warehouses in favor of that. So I think we have to go by the book on this one, and that if 142 spaces are required, we need 142 spaces on site. And I know we've got this parking agreement that has 6 months lease, and I don't know how you're going to run that with the property. I mean, what if you miss a 6-month lease payment? Do they have rights to take that away and things like that? So there's too many what ifs on this one that I agree with Ms. Waterfield. I would be in favor of denying the project.
And I'd like to make my comments before we wrap up here. I agree with you, Mr. Boyce, and I if we're going to waive requirements, then we need to come back and say, okay, we're just going to change our city ordinances. It's either one way or the other, and I don't think that you change the game right in the middle and say, okay, it's okay, because we'll have someone come back here and say, okay, you did it for this guy a couple of months ago or 6 months ago, and then we will have to say, yeah, we did, and then we'd have to change that again. We either go by what the ordinance is now, or we don't, or we come back and change the ordinance. As far as the parking on the city streets, we'll have something coming up on our agenda, which is going to impact our parking on the city streets. We already get complaints from people in the city about too many cars on the city streets, and we know why that is, and that's not because of businesses necessarily. But I travel that road at least daily, and there is parking over on the Boone side of that. And in fact, I used the Walmart store this morning, and there was a lot of parking there, and there's parking along the side on Boone Street. People go from point A to point B. It's a straight line. They're not going to use the crosswalk because I don't see them using it right now. They're going across Boone and they're going across the street. So I will not be supporting that. So anyway, any further discussion?
If there's no further discussion, Madam Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-134, denying the general plan land use and zoning map amendment.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt resolution that's 2017-134. And introduce the ordinance, is that 2017-19?
No, there's no
that's it.
introduction of ordinance.
Okay, that's no introduction. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield? Aye. Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
No.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. We have a public hearing coming up, but I saw some of our firefighters coming in here, and I know they have an announcement they would like to make, so I'm assuming you have an announcement. We don't have a fire going on in here, so I'm going to assume that you have an announcement. So, Fill the Boot for MDA was done last Saturday, and thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, I'd like to thank you once again for your continued supporting the muscular dystrophy fundraiser that we do every year. I'd like to announce that we broke our record once again. We were able to raise $18,000 this year.
$18,000.
So we appreciate it very much. Also to the police chief, I want to thank you for assisting us with the traffic. It might be a small thing that you guys do, but it's absolutely huge in helping us with our endeavor. Just a little quick history. The IFF, the International Association of Firefighters, has been involved with the MDA since 1954. During that time frame, they've raised $607 million collectively. With that, there's been research to identify the genetic causes of muscular dystrophy, and along with that also, 4 new drugs have been approved by the FDA to help treat muscular dystrophy. So that's where some of that money is going to, just for a few examples. Today I have Cassandra with me. She is a mother of MDA, and she would also like to say a few words.
Hi, Madam Mayor and council members and members of the fire department and police chief. I've been involved with the MDA since my son was diagnosed at 8.5 years old with Friedreich's ataxia. I must say the Santa Maria Fill the Boot is one of my favorite. It's it's definitely fun to see Madam Mayor out there with the boot. Thank you very much for being out there and showing your support for us. It means the world to us parents. As a mom, not only have we done the 4 drugs, we've also been able to fast track 4 more drugs with the FDA through fundraisers. So we couldn't do what we do without the help of the firemen and the police chief, and we just wanted to thank you guys all very, very much, and congratulations on $18,000.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. How much was last year's? If this is 18,000. Thank you very much. You know, I know a lot of you are here for item number 7. So if it's okay with the council, I will move up to number. And I want to thank all of you students for sitting here so nice and quiet and attentive and getting us civics lessons in parking. So if it's okay with the council.
Yes, it's okay with this council member, but I did want to make a comment also, if you mind. And that is that, Pat, thank you for staying, but we all know you have a long drive to Santa Barbara, and there's no shame in leaving. People do that all the time after they're sick. But we appreciate you staying to see with us, and you can stay as long as you want, but it is okay to excuse yourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So with that, I will move on to item number 7. The Mayor's Task Force on Youth Safety, proposed strategic plan, and the staff report is to be made by Director of Recreation and Parks, Mr. Posada.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you, Mayor, for moving this up on the agenda. It's always a good thing. I was almost prepared. Tonight, we're bringing forward an opportunity for the Council to consider the Task Force Plan for Action on Youth Safety, and to begin the implementation of that plan. For the purpose of background, we'd like to remind you that the Council began its effort to address the issue of youth violence and created the Mayor's Youth Task Force several months ago. We were looking around the state of California trying to find other models that we could use, and we were fortunate to find and actually be led to the California Violence Prevention Network. The network has been working with us over the few months to try to pull together a plan, facilitate some of our discussions, and present to us opportunities and comparisons that were handled in other communities. On February 7, 2017, the Council formed the Policy Advisory Committee. This is a group made up of community leaders from various professions around the city, including education, government, elected officials, business community, public health, and a number of other organizations that faith-based groups, those kinds of groups were involved, and our local nonprofits. The idea was to pull these leaders together and begin the discussion on how to create a plan that everyone would participate in. Starting in May, the Policy Committee met once a month for 6 months. The meetings were open to the public. They were held in a large room, either at the Youth Center or over at the Manami Center, and we were able to get a lot of input and have a lot of open discussion. There was also the opportunity to gather input from the community at several forums that were held. Mayor Patino and Mr. Galarza, our community outreach coordinator, had the opportunity to go out and speak to youth in many different formats, including our summer recreation program at the high schools and at some of the junior highs. The questions that were asked at those meetings were what was their perception of safety in the community and what they felt needed to be done to make the community a safe place for them. In addition to those visits, there was 2 community health fairs that were held, and we really talked about a number of issues at those with parents and children. And that information was gathered and brought back to the task force general meetings. Excuse me. After follow-up meetings of the task force, there were 9 implementation objectives that became the foundation for the plan that you are going to see. And they addressed the issue of youth violence. Excuse me. Using 3 objectives as framework for action, there were 3 domains created. One of strategy, which included a comprehensive approach to supporting evidence-based strategies to deal with youth violence. Number 2 was governance, including a collaborative approach involving other agencies around the community to help us. Thank you very much. To help address the problem, realizing that this is not a city problem that the city can handle on its own. And then third was sustainability, to invest in the support and vision of the project. The idea is that it will take those levels of support. In addition to these objectives, there were 4 pillars. Those pillars include prevention, intervention, enforcement, and reentry. With their own internal objectives, they are intended to guide the efforts for all the groups working on the plan. The Mayor's Task Force on Youth Safety, Mayor Patino, and the Council asked the community to assist in these efforts excuse me, by answering a call to action tonight, becoming involved in the efforts of the task force to help service youth. We're asking individuals tonight who are interested to get involved, sign up for a mentorship, support the program by volunteering your time and effort, expanding opportunities in youth recreation in the community. And probably the biggest term I heard anyway during the discussions was employ youth, finding jobs that youth can perform that will give them, I believe it was stated, to give them a little spending money to put in their pocket and be able to go out and enjoy things in the community. Should the council tonight adopt the plan, it's important to keep in mind that really we're just at the beginning. The plan is a fluid document. It's going to require some changes as we move forward. We do want to acknowledge the involvement of all those members of the task force, and that we engage them in staying involved in the events of the task force over the next several months that it will take to implement this plan. As always, there's money that is an issue. One of the things that we are working on, Ms. Rayburn and her staff from Recreation and Parks will be working on applying for funding from different sources, local funding sources, and we're also looking at a Cal VIP grant, which is due in February, I believe, with the idea of being able to help support those organizations that step forward and offer programs to support the Mayor's Youth Task Force. There's also an opportunity to look at other funding measures locally, including the Measure U extension, and maybe looking at a way to fund some youth activities there. But I do want to state that, as being with Recreation and Parks, we have worked very hard over the last couple of years to make sure that we're investing our resources in the right place by expanding our summer youth programs, our Safe and Strong, having the council's authorization to bring Mr. Galarza on as our community outreach coordinator. And I think we've just done a lot of effort. Well over $200,000 has been invested already by the city into programs and services being offered. Lastly, I think the impact that we want to see made to the community is that we desire to have a city that youth can enjoy. They can benefit from education, recreation, and employment opportunities in a safe and nurturing community. That's really what we're trying to strive for. Tonight, we have an opportunity to hear from some of our steering committee members who are here tonight, and we'll be asking them to come up in just a moment. We've also asked Mr. Galarza to present a very brief case study on one of the youth that he's helped service over the last few months of his position. Mr. Oliveras is here from the California Violence Prevention Network. He has been kind of our mentor through this process, and we want to acknowledge his service and that of the network on their help to get these things done. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, Teresa Rayburn, Rec Services Manager, has been taking the lead on this, and especially now trying to pull together the elements of the Cal VIP grant. Ms. Rayburn, as well as Mr. Stillwell, will be available for questions, as will I, regarding the presentation tonight. But at this time, if there are any members of the steering committee that would like to come to the podium and maybe share a little bit of their thoughts of how the process worked, we'd like to invite them up now. I don't know if there's anybody here.
I think Ms. Taylor is here.
All right. So that one in. Thank you. And was Pastor Joel still here, or did he leave? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Taylor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Beverly Taylor. I retired from the probation department as a chief probation officer in 2015 after serving 33 years with the department. And in January 2017, I assumed the role as acting chief probation officer and was invited then to serve on the mayor's task force as well as on the steering committee. And recognizing the importance of this task and effort, and recognizing that solving youth violence in our community would take the collaboration of all of our stakeholders to identify the issues, to develop potential solutions, and finally to implement the proposed solutions, the probation department was certainly committed to the process. In that, we shared our data with the task force. We participated in the retreat planning meeting, and also we set up meetings for Mr. Galarza to meet with our youth at the Santa Maria Juvenile Hall and our Los Prados Boys Camp. So the probation department will continue with their participation moving forward. And I did want to highlight just a couple of items that I observed. I wanted to recognize the mayor's effort to put forth this effort. It is not easy to get all of the stakeholders and come to monthly meetings, which she was, I believe, successful in doing. I also want to commend the task force for setting ambitious timelines and being able to be successful in producing a working document that is ready for stakeholders to volunteer and begin implementation. I'd also like to highlight that it was important to the steering committee as well as to the task force at large to hear the voice of youth that held a youth town hall meeting. At our last task force meeting, it was agreed upon by the task force at large that it was important to have the representatives from the organizers of that youth town hall meeting to be involved in the last steering committee that would flesh out the objectives, and that's how we came upon the 9 implementation objectives. And it was also reassuring that the process had worked. As the information gleaned from the youth town hall meeting, their issues were very similar and some, if not identical, to the ones that had come up in the task force. So it was a great opportunity. I'm going to be back to retirement in a couple of weeks, and I really am looking forward to volunteering because I think there are some really great initiatives and groups that are really worthy of volunteering in. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and we're going to take you up on that volunteer. Maybe you'll be in charge of the volunteers, Bev.
That's one of our favorite employee classifications, by the way.
Mr. Morris.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the council. I want to also acknowledge that our appreciation as the Chamber of Commerce in being included in the task force. And as Mr. Posada mentioned, I think we also heard loud and clear that one of the key strategies at this point is looking at the issue of youth employment. For a number of reasons, not the least of which our friends in Sacramento, employing youth in the business community has become more difficult since I was that age, and so it's become a challenge, I think. But I think it's one we need to address, and we need to get creative and find solutions for. And we're prepared to continue to work on that strategy and serve as a convener to bring the business owners into the room to talk about ways that we can make that work. I think at this point in the process, we've come as far as we can with the first phase of this process. And I think the identification of specific strategies was an important first milestone. That's where we're at. Now we need to form the teams to take those forward. I think it's natural that people want to see immediate action, right? And they want to see that we're doing something. But I think it was important that while for many of us it might have felt rushed, for others it might have seemed like we took a long time, but it was important to get out all of those ideas and really put them on the table before coalescing on key strategies. That's where we're at. We think that we've got a good set of strategies, and we look forward to working with staff and the other members of the task force to move forward on at least that one and others if we can be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. We do want to remind the community that's out here that in the back of the room, we did set out some timelines, so you kind of see where we're going to move from here. There's also some volunteer forms back there, so if you have an interest in participating, we ask you to pick one of those forms up. I'd like to ask Mr. Galarza, our community outreach coordinator, to come up to the podium and kind of give you a little case study that he's been working on.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Galarza.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to have such a great job. This is my dream job. You know, I've been working in the community for over 25 years, working with young people, families. But this was a big task. And as you can see, you know, the screen, our Safe and Strong program is one of the best programs I've seen around, because we're starting young. We're not starting at, you know, junior high school level. We're not starting at high school. We're starting young. And I think education is a key, not only for our young kids, but for our parents also. I've been working a lot closely with our DA, our school attendance review board. And we have some cases that, oh my gosh, that, you know, I wish I could take these kids home. We have young girls that are being trafficked through the gangs. We have kids that, you know, lost their parents through gang violence. We have kids that, you know, were given up to the system. And I think those are serious cases. Just today, I was representing a man who, a young boy, I'll call him a young boy. He's 18, but he wanted to be called a man. And he was at court. He did not want to go inside. I told him, let's go inside. You have to go. Get it over with. He did not know how to read or write, and he was 18 years old. His parents looked like they were his brothers and sisters, and they did not know how to read or write. When I asked them to fill out the paper, they had no clue. They put an X. So that's where I think education in our youngsters and in our parents, you know, that's what we need. But I mean, I could go on and tell you all these sad stories about kids who have lost their parents or are being raised by the parents. Homeless kids. The young lady that was here talking about homeless. I run into families that are homeless sleeping behind the youth center because they have nowhere to go, and they have kids and teens. You know, I mean, this youth task force is going to be good, and I really believe in this. I really do. And I'm boots on the ground. I've worked with 140 kids already. 50 of those are ongoing. I go to all the high schools, all the junior high schools, and elementaries. We have a survey we give to all the kids, and yes, I have gone to the juvenile halls and Los Prietos Boys Camp. What these kids want is education and jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galarza.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Oliveros is here tonight, out here in the audience, and certainly, as I mentioned, he has been the mentor for the organization and for staff trying to get us moving forward. I don't know if you had anything he wanted to say tonight, or if he'll be here as a resource. Thank you.
Please don't tell us we were difficult to mentor.
No, but I can't pass up the opportunity to congratulate you. I do have to commend you. I'm going to kind of tee off on what Eddie was talking about and the youth that he's been working with. And I think I used this quote early on in our relationship. And it's a quote that my partner and I found and kind of tweaked for our use. And it is that in a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. And I think that's the transition we're making here in Santa Maria, is we recognize that some people will make mistakes, but I think there's a responsibility in the entire community to prevent those kinds of things from happening, and also to offer the assistance, especially to our young youth, to move forward. Tonight, what you are doing here, Mayor and Council, is you are really getting up here and making a call to action, which is really what this is. There's been a lot of work that's been put on by a number of staff and community members, a lot of partners. I've seen processes like this across the country. It's not easy. It's not easy, but to think about the efforts that we put into this in the past, well, typically we relied solely on law enforcement to deal with some of these issues. That wasn't really working for us either. And I think what we're seeing is more and more communities are moving in the direction of taking ownership of our issues and looking for solutions that we can really buy into. And having that clear vision that you all worked through is very important, because who in Santa Maria, who in California would be against a program that would improve youth safety? Nobody would. would. I think that's what really rallies your community together. And it's important now as the plan is being finalized and you're approving it, is that every community member take the opportunity to read it. It's important for organizations to read it because it will help shape how they address issues as an organization. But as community members, it also helps community members identify what's my role? What is my role? How can I help? Maybe it's mentoring a child. Maybe it's reading to a child. And one of the things that was very impressive in looking at some of the responses that we received from the community is there's so much willingness from community members to help and to learn more about what this is, and asking, next time I'm bringing somebody else with me because they need to learn too. So take advantage of that. I think you really do have people that want to help. The youth, thank you for being here. This isn't always that easy either, but I think even here in Santa Maria, which is I think is a little bit unique, it's also youth saying, I want to participate. It's not so much having to go out there and say, please come. They're saying, I have a voice. And I think it's important because we are talking about youth, that we should be involving youth in identifying some of the directions that we want to be going as a community. So I do welcome them because I hope and I have visions that someday one or some of them are going to be sitting up there where you are now because they are our future. So again, congratulations to you, to the community. Again, you're just starting. You now have a roadmap and a plan to continue on with, and I will I'll be happy to continue to work with the city to help identify some of those funding sources. And I also look forward to assisting the city in joining the California Cities Violence Prevention Network as a member. And part of that process is going to be having a plan. You have a plan now, so we can start talking about having you become a member as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olivares. And I know that it's so important to have this plan because as we go to the state and as we go back to D.C., we have to, and if we want grants, we need to show them we've got a plan, we've worked on it, it's not taken us all that long, and we have something a roadmap that we want to work on.
Yes, and as you visit Sacramento, have a couple of these in your briefcase
I'll have more
and
than a couple.
share them. You have something to
Let me
sell.
ask you a question.
Yes.
Because we know a lot of these kids really want to work, and legislation over the years has really confined a lot of our kids. I mean, I was out working, I can remember in the Peaches when I was about 11 or 12 years old, but these kids can't do that today.
Right.
Because of the legislation. Are there still schools that have work education at all in the state?
There's a lot of creativity going on with some of our community-based organizations in helping to train youth to get into the workforce and identifying projects within a city, within a community. I know some cities have been creative enough to apply for grant funding that actually pays a salary of young teenagers and young adults. So they go through a training process and they actually use the grant funding to connect with maybe somebody that Chamber of Commerce knows that has a job for teenagers and or young adults, saying we've worked with this child, has some issues, we've worked very well with them, we think he's employable, we want you to give them a chance. Give them a chance, we will pay his salary or her salary, and we will help you supervise them during that time period. Then if you wish, we encourage you to take them on as a permanent employee afterwards or a part-time employee. It's those kinds of creative ideas that are coming up in trying to get more and more of our youth employed.
Well, and I agree. I think it's really great to get creative, but when the workforce, what is the workforce, the whole name, workforce development, okay. And they through the supervisor's office, and then we got money for them to employ them. But 15 hours a week is not enough time. That's not a job for some of these kids. And so we really need to work harder, I guess, to lobby our legislators that we need more than that for these kids.
Yes, and hopefully even here we can focus on some good summer youth employment programs as well.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And Mr. Galarza, I wanted to comment. I mean, my Parks Commissioner and I went out and visited some of the parks for the Safe and Strong this summer, and we noticed at one park there were people with red T-shirts on that said Era Energy on it, and these are adults that have come out to the parks to spend their time and to mentor and to play with the kids. Yes, Mr. Galarza, please.
At some of these parks, we're seeing up to 250 kids a day. We're feeding them, we're mentoring them, and we're providing games for them. Now, that's a safe and positive place for these kids to be at. We went to a junior high school, a local junior high school here, that the kids wrote letters. And one of the things that they were saying is, they want to be safe walking home. They don't want these gang members recruiting them. They don't want these gang members offering them drugs. And, and I thought that was really important that these kids took time to write us letters to go and talk to them and address these issues. But our Safe and Strong program is a great program that we have here in the city of Santa Maria.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes the staff report and presentation. Again, myself, Ms. Rayburn, and Mr. Stillwell are available if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Mr. Boyson?
If I could just make a sidebar comment, and Mr. Galarza, just to you, you made a comment about families living homeless on the street. That should never happen in Santa Maria. We will make room in our shelter for families. Now, there are rules, and, parents have to follow them. I mean, they have to be substance-free and all of these sort of things. If they're not able to follow our rules, those children should probably be referred to Child Protective Services and that sort of thing. So I just want to make sure that that there are services available for these families. I mean, certainly we're impacted at our shelter, and certainly there are certain individuals that would otherwise qualify that we do have to turn away, but most of those are single men. But we will make room for those families. We do not want to see children on the street.
No, and we have the resources. We give them the resources where to go to. Our park rangers are awesome. Our city park rangers, they work with us, and and all we have to do is call them. Our Santa Maria PD also, same thing. They refer kids to us, and if we have an issue, we call them. They're on the spot right away.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any written correspondence or requests to speak?
We have 19 requests to speak.
19 requests to speak, okay. Usually I give everyone 3 minutes to talk. If you want to talk less, that would be fine. What does that say? Okay. I don't think this is Ernest Armenta, though, is it? The last name is Armenta. Is there? It is? Okay. Gosh, it didn't look like Ernest. I know who you are, but that didn't look.
I speak on everything. For everybody that knows, usually this place is empty. Usually there's no participation. Usually there is nobody here from the community. Like no one even cares. Yeah, truly. You may find this offensive, but I'm going to call it like it is. That many of you here, you don't even come to these meetings. You come when it's convenient, when it's comfortable on issues you want. But if you came to these meetings every day, you would see how bad a shape we're in. You would see. On this issue right here, growing up, there was no intervention programs or task force. You know who took care of business? Mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles. Literally, there was hell to pay. By the time I got in trouble, by the time I knew that I was caught, all the family knew. And that's what the issue is here, that it's good that you guys care, but how about parent responsibility? How about personal responsibility? I know this sounds raw and vicious, but I'm not paying any more Measure U sales tax dollars to raise other people's kids. I know that sounds raw and cold, huh? That you don't even care. But I want to share some things with you. There are some men and women that don't want to change. Even kids, they don't want to change. They have no hope. Because when they look, and I say this respectfully, I know Eddie, but when they hear right here and they're watching that, hey, if I don't, that Eddie or someone's going to call the police on me, they're not going to get into no task force. People don't like tattletales. You can't go up to someone and open up and ask for help if you know they're working with a man. So I would encourage all those who are participating in this youth task force, you need to share with that young man and that young woman that I'm not your enemy. So you do wrong and maybe you have a dependency problem, but I'm not going to report you to the police. And that's a shaky line, because you're supposed to report it. You're supposed to do good and report bad people. But I will share this with Ms. Patino. You get nowhere when everybody gets the word, when all the youth and all those guys out there, all those vatos understand at a young age that, hey, don't go to the task force because they will report you to Chief Hansen. They will report you to the man. So you guys I encourage you to save all the lives you can. But you guys have serious issue, and that is one thing that you guys don't want to talk about, that you're not going to be able to address. And how are you going to fund it? Mr. Boyson, Mrs. Waterfield, Dr. Moats, and Mr. Condero. Are you going to cut everybody's salaries? All the department head salaries? If the taxpayers are not going to pay for it, where are you going to get the funding from? Mrs. Malikoff will reduce her pay and her benefits, or we'll just wipe away all your pay that you guys receive. Money is the issue here. How are you going to fund it? And you can make up all the plans you want, but if you don't have no funding, the project or this task force goes nowhere. Thank you, and I know it sounds offensive. I know it sounds raw, like insensitive, this cold-hearted that you don't care, but hey, I think that people, aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpas right now speaking, here, I'll end by this, Ms. Patino. It's 7:25, and where's your son and daughter at? What's your son and daughter doing right now? That goes out to the parents. Well, most parents are looking and see their children here, but where's your son and daughter at right now? What are they doing? Are they up to no good? That's not Jack Boyson's responsibility or Mrs. Patino's. That's the parents' responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Jennifer, is it George? Jennifer, is there a Jennifer out there? Okay. Inez Ruiz. Glenn Morris, you already spoke. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I mispronounce your name?
Inez.
Inez? Okay.
My name's Inez, and I am a youth. I am the future, and I, like any other youth, should be involved in all youth plan making decisions because the results will affect my peers and I, not older folks. Let us work with you because we're capable. We have ideas and we have a voice, and it is time we should be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Mendoza, followed by Bernice Lopez, followed by Lupita Rios. Is Jacqueline here? Okay. Bernice?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Lopez, and I was a facilitator at the Youth Town Hall meeting. And one of my concerns is trying to find ways for parents to be involved in this situation because they should be aware of the youth violence and what causes this. And they also need more communication with the city council, the schools, and the community, and programs that are out there for them. I also want to be part of the policy advisory committee because I want to make decisions that will have great effect towards my peers for the long run. So I want these decisions that are going to be for them and that are going to affect them in a good way. And I also want to, with all due respect, I want to tell you guys that you guys got elected to work for us, so you guys should be doing a good change and not doing the opposite of that. And I also want objectives J and K to be included and implemented into the goals because they weren't part of the goals that you guys put. And I want to thank nonprofit organizations such as CAUSE because they've been part of this whole situation, and they're great people that actually want youth that want to help the youth that are going towards the wrong path. And I want to see them be part of your agencies and work with you guys because they're a great organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Lupita Rios, followed by Jose, and I think Jose left, right, already? Followed by Williana Vega. Go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Lupita Rios, and I'm a senior at Pioneer Valley High School. I'm the president of Future Leaders of America's Student Council, and this past October, I was a facilitator at the Youth Town Hall as well. It was an event facilitated by youth and for youth. We wanted our voices to be heard by community leaders and show that we truly do have concern over the issues that affect us. And we care about the decisions that are going to be made by the Mayor's Task Force. We hope that our ideas are taken into consideration. This is the first step to creating a more inclusive and safe community that will offer more opportunities and resources to youth of all backgrounds. So, undocumented youth, LGBTQ youth, youth of color, at-risk youth. This can be as simple as investing in the arts, hiring culturally aware and bilingual counselors, or investing in more programs for monolingual students to make sure that they stay on a path to college. Another thing brought up at the Youth Town Hall was to connect young people to more mental health resources. If youth have support at home and at school, they will no longer need to turn to gangs. I believe that there are so many solutions that go beyond criminalizing at-risk youth. I would also like to support the addition of 2 objectives. Objective J would be partnering with schools to increase resources to keep students engaged and on a path to educational success. Objective K would be improving relationships between police and local youth through training and community-oriented policing. I will continue to advocate for the involvement of youth-led organizations such as CAUSE and FLA in the Policy Advisory Committee. We are much more than third stringers. Thank you.
Thank you. Juliana Vega, followed, okay, go ahead. Paola Ligario, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Juliana Vega, and I am a junior and I go to Santa Maria High School. I am one of many concerned youth representatives, and I was also one of the facilitators for the Youth Town Hall meeting. And I also believe that we, the youth, should have the opportunity to be involved in the Policy Advisory Committee, because I believe that how can there be decision-making and expect solution when there's no youth input? I also believe that there should be 2 youth advisors, reps, that are formally acknowledged and present in the task force. And I am also agreement in the implementation of the objectives J and K. Thank you for your time, and I hope you take this under consideration.
Thank you. Paola Ligario, and then David after that.
Good evening, my name is Paola Ligario. As a youth, I want to emphasize the importance is creating a youth facing that affirms areas to play sport, as a creating a culture and arts building could be benefit for youth. Thank you.
Thank you. David, followed by Sophia Alvarado?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. Being born and raised here and currently studying at UCSB on issues of juvenile justice and social issues, I've come to learn that youth need to be involved at all policy levels because they are the ones affected the most in our communities when it comes to youth violence. By increasing resources and youth police relationships, it increases this path towards getting them involved. Adding the 2 objectives, J and K, as proposed by our youth leaders here, it makes a point that the importance of preventative methods like increasing school resources and implementing community police is just as important as re-entry programs and so forth that was mentioned earlier. I'd like to commend the work that is being done for on the issue of youth violence by our city, Madam Mayor, also our grassroots and community members. However, I just hope that there is an implementation of J and K on the objectives list, and our youth are more represented and included in the policy-making levels instead of just using their sound bites. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia Alvarado, I think it is. Followed by Abraham Melendez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia Altamirano. I'm a first year in Allen Hinckett College. I just come here in support of Objective K, which would be partnering with schools to increase resources to keep students engaged on a path to educational success. I have younger siblings, and I would like to see them have an early start in exploring what kind of careers and also even their education for the future, and also in support of Objective K, which would be improving relationships between police and local youth through training in community-oriented police, because as looking back at the strategic plan on youth safety, I noticed that there was a lot of more enforcement instead of making the youth part of the solution. Thank you.
Abraham Melendez, followed by Joanna Barrera, followed by Janet Cruz.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the city staff and the steering committee members. I think they're doing a great job and putting a lot of hard work. Thank you for your hard work. First of all, we believe that the first need raised by the youth, which was to provide resources for healthy family, to create healthier families and addressing trauma, neglect, and abuse, was met by Objective D, that's currently at the current strategic plan, and we look forward to participating in implementation for that. Again, a little bit more info on the objectives that we are recommending. We did meet with the steering committee and we made some suggestions. We haven't seen some of them. As I mentioned, there was one that was implemented, but there is still the two, the J and K, that would be partnering with schools to increase resources to keep students engaged on the path to educational success. A lot of the wording around the objectives are more about the schools referring the youth to other things, but not specific to the environment. And then, of course, I mentioned Mr. Stillwell in our meeting that we really wanted to have more cooperation with community-oriented policing with the youth as well. So that would be the other item. Lastly, the last thing I would like to mention is I will continue to advocate for you to be involved at all levels. I understand you have the plan and involving them once the plan is implemented, but we feel it's very important at all levels. Specifically the policy and the steering committee. If you take a look actually at the plan, there's a list of the mayor task force members. We actually have a youth representative here. The youth worked really hard to come up with 3 youth representatives to sit at the table, and once they were finally allowed to sit at the table, you will see on the list that none of their names are on that list of the mayor's task force. So they are still not being included. Madam Mayor, City Council Member Cordero, I know you guys have been vehemently opposed to including youth on policy level specifically, and that is a great shame, with comments such as, you don't invite the painters until you build a house. First of all, the youth, and I say it to you then, and I will say it again, the youth and the city members are not the painters. If anything, they are the architects. The city members are here. We actually are your bosses, if you will. You, I guess, are civil servants, and so I hope Ms. Etta Waterfield, Jack Boyson, Dr. Motes, that you guys don't have the same mentality, and that you will amend the plan to include youth at all levels, especially the policy, because you can't do it for them without them. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna Barrera, followed by Janet Cruz.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Joanna Barrera. I was one of the organizers for the Youth Town Hall, and I just saw the need for it to be done, because the Mayor's Task Force and, a lot of the agency heads, I do, say that you've done a lot of work and working together and collaborating, but I felt that the youth were left out of the question. And growing up here, I grew up here in Santa Maria, and it's really hard to get through the political process and through, the system, right? Even as an adult. But if we're going to make change and if we're going to come up with a strategic plan on youth violence, on how to reduce it, I think that the first step is to reach out to the youth. And, organizations like CAUSE and FLA, we brought together this Youth Led Forum to include approximately 100 youth that came to this forum. And, we engaged them and we came up with these objectives, right? These were objective J and K that we're talking about here. And we decided, the youth decided, it wasn't even me, it wasn't even us as people that helped out with this. It was the youth that said, we wish to see that the school districts partner with the task force or with agency heads to engage the youth in a more successful path to education, not just allowing them to or pushing them to graduate, but pushing them to go to pursue a higher education, such as community college and university level, right? That says a lot about our community, seeing how many youth go to university. I know there's a very low percentage of youth that are from low-income immigrant families of color, right, that go to universities or reach that higher education. I would be so happy to see so many youth from our city, right? Put our city on the map, hey, there's so many youth going to universities. There are so many youth that are pursuing higher education or, getting to a career that other youth from other cities, set the example, set the model. Objective K, improving relationships between the police and the youth. Having community-oriented policies, a relationship that the youth aren't afraid to make reports, right? So I think that your most valuable resource is to going out and communicating and establishing a relationship between community-based organizations and including the youth especially, right, in these conversations. So, we need to have a greater emphasis on partnerships with the schools and also how the police, Santa Maria Police, can improve their relationships with and trust the youth, right? Having restorative justice methods, not just resorting to punitive methods, but having community-oriented policing and de-escalation. So having better trainings for our police officers. So those are some suggestions that we're making, and I'm really happy to see the youth here, and thank you.
Wow, perfect.
You timed that really good. Janet Cruz, followed by Kathy Sharam, followed by Janessa Cantu.
Hello, good evening, council members and Mayor Patino, as well as the audience. I am here to, urge you to add the objectives J and K into the strategic plan. I believe these two objectives are very important to our youth, and that is because, objective J being, it would be partnering with schools to increase resources to keep students engaged on a path to education success. So to me, that means, it means a lot, because recently we heard about, a student from Rigetti High School who committed suicide. And previously to that, we heard of other, students committing suicide. And personally, I'm tired of it. I have sisters, and they ask me, why did she kill herself? She read those articles. She said, why did she kill herself? And I didn't know how to answer to that. It's hard to, imagine yourself losing your daughter, losing your son, losing your daughter. It's hard, it's one less life. Santa Maria, I think Santa Maria is tired of, all these suicides, all these homicides. And that is because with this suicide, with this Rigetti student, she probably could have reached out to a counselor that she trusted or that she could have trusted. But there were some limits to herself that, she didn't feel comfortable of doing so. Objective K would be improving relationships between police and local youth through training and community-oriented policing. I have a friend who is homeless, who is also a student, and recently he had, these suicide thoughts. And I see a lot of youth actually saying the word suicide, and that means that we need these, these resources that not just schools are going to provide and promote, but also our community, our city council. We need the school districts and we need the Santa Maria to work together, because that is how you're going to see improvement. We can't just leave the job for our school districts to work on that. It has to be working all together, you know, from the family, from our parents to our community representatives to our elected officers and elected board members from our school districts. This friend, I said, I'm not trained. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I went out there and I looked for him and I tried to do whatever I can. Luckily, I was able to help him. But as you can see, you know, I said, is it okay if I call the police? I don't know what to do. I really don't. I don't want you to commit anything bad to yourself. I don't want to hurt yourself. And this student, this homeless person, this resident said, no, don't call the police. They're just going to make it worse. They're going to kill me. And as you can see, that means that there's a bad reputation to that. And for that reason, I urge you to adopt and add Objective J and K into the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being a good friend to your friend Janet. Kathy Sharam, followed by Vanessa Cantu.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, before I retired, I spent my career managing public lands. And I learned from that experience how important it is for the people using those lands to feel some kind of ownership. And the same is true for one's community. You have an incredible opportunity here in having a large contingent of youth, many of which are here tonight and present, in utilizing their energy and willingness to have ownership in their community. I was fortunate to be an observer at the Youth Town Hall and watched firsthand how nearly 100 youth work together side by side, identifying serious issues and problems and finding solutions to those complex issues and problems that affect their lives. It would be unfortunate for all of us if you missed the opportunity to include the youth of our city, not only as members of the task force, but at all levels of the decision making. They're bright, they're capable, they are willing, and they are stakeholders. I urge you to move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Vanessa Cantu, followed by Elizabeth Schneider.
Hi. I know we have a rough road, just me in a relationship with the city. In fact, I just want to make a short joke because Mr. Armenta said that we don't show representation or kind of like pointed in this area, and I kind of felt like, whoa, like I should get a job because I'm here so much. Like, tough crowd. So I totally lost my train of thought. I think that it's important for youth to be a part of this, and I've been saying it from the beginning. And I know a lot of people have gone over what J and K are, but I'm going to go over them again. Objective J would be partnering with schools to increase resource to keep students engaged on a path to educational success. And Objective K would be improving relationships with police and local youth. I feel that both are very important and they should be implemented in the strategic plan. I feel that I have a growing connection with Mr. Officer Strecker because his teacher was my 4th grade teacher. I went to Ontiveros Elementary. It's on the north side of town. That's where I live. Just in case you want to visit me, a couple houses down from Taco Bell. And I don't know Mr. Cohen so well, but he did have an altercation with my brother, which my mom asked him for help, and he recommended that we put my brother on probation, which was not such a good, it didn't speak well to us. So I think we should really improve relationships with police and with schools because education's important. So, yeah. Wait, we've had an issue before where the majority has asked for things and we don't get it. not going to say what incident it was, but it happened. So for my remaining couple minutes, I'm just going to say the letters that I think should be implemented. Beginning now. J, K, 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 just a couple more seconds. J, K, J, K, J for Jeffrey, K for Kelly, J, K, J, K, J for schools, K for police, J, K, J, K, J, K, J, K, J, K. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Schneider, followed by Bob Orrock.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Elizabeth Schneider, and I'm speaking in opposition to the proposed task force proposed strategic plan. Once again, Madam Mayor, you have failed to include those who will be most impacted by this plan. Our youth and their families should have been included from the very beginning. The probation rep touted bringing the youth from the town hall ideas and participants into the last task force meeting. That's nothing to be proud of. They should have been representatives of the youth, and their families should have been included from the very beginning. You have developed, once again, a paternalistic approach to solving the problems of the youth. It has been proved time after time that paternalistic approaches do not solve problems. A huge example, the United States has spent over $4 trillion on moving people out of poverty since the 1960s. Researchers have shown that most of the positions taken were top-down programs. We now have more people in poverty than ever before. Top-down programs don't work. You must build them from the ground up. I support including recommendations J and K, and I won't repeat them over and over again like Vanessa did, because I'm sure you want to get out of here just as much as we do. Schools must be an important partner in any youth programs. Students spend a great deal of their time in school, and schools can be dangerous. We need to have the schools involved in any solutions to youth safety. And to the chief, he came and spoke to one of the groups that I belong to, and he said he supported community policing. And I told him I appreciated the talk, but I'd keep my eye on him and see if he walked the walk. This is not walking the walk.
Okay, do we have Jennifer? Has Jennifer already spoken? Okay, did you speak already? Okay, I'm sorry. And Bernice? Okay.
Hi, my name is Berenice. As a student part of Santa Maria Joint Union High School District, I want to point out that Indigenous students need someone that is able to communicate in their Indigenous language. I hope that you take this point to consideration, and together we can help the Indigenous students to get more involved, and I hope for more civic engagement. This can create a better communication and relationship between the police and the community, youth, and also I also support the objectives J and K. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Orrock.
Did you turn the timer off? Thank you. 3 minutes. Bob Orrock, a citizen of this community and kind of a participant for a number of years. First, thank you, Mr. Oliveira, from bringing the group together. The model that is set up that you're following is something that a lot of people have put a lot of money, time, and energy, and it has worked in other areas. And so the starting focal point is the mayor's task force. Forming task force is a monumental issue, I'll tell you, and most of them fail, Allison. I'm praying that this comes together. The document that you have, the group has had educators, police officers, firefighters, mental health, all the county issues that help solve problems for everybody, not just youth. That's a particular category. And you're working on developing that. This isn't going to happen overnight. And the one thing I'll say, they keep saying that we're going to have committees to work on individual areas because not all of us are concerned about every issue that either old people have, middle-aged people have, or young people have. But those that are interested in a particular issue can get involved at that level, the study groups that are going to come back with recommendations. And that's what you've got the volunteer sheet back here for. I'm not going to be at every meeting to give my expertise because I don't have an expertise. But there are some particular issues that I think I have a little bit of influence on. And so that's what I'm saying. These young people have some issues. They can work in those committees. I won't point at you guys, you're not old. But anyway, the rest of us can join in the other areas that are sufficient to help give guidance for what our area of expertise is. And I'll guarantee you, the school district, the high school district, they're all very active and involved in what's going to go forward. And you know what? It does take money, baby. And that's going to have to be an issue that we all come together about, and we all should help fund in some way, shape, or form, whether Mr. Armenta likes it or not. The buck stops with this community and anybody else we can glean money from. But Mr. Oliveros, thank you very much for coming and leading the charge and keeping us on point where we tried to stray during this. Anyway, read the thing and appreciate it and participate in it. That's the key. Everyone needs to participate in this son of a gun.
Thank you, Mr. Art. Okay, Ms. Rayburn, would you like to make any comments about anything that's been said and where we, are you going to do where we're going next?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Good evening.
First of all, I have a comment because I'm so excited to be here. And I was one of the people that invited you to come and work with us. And I don't understand why it's such a problem for you. No one has called me and asked me, is there something I can do to help? I would love that. I'm still doing my job as Recreation Services Manager. This is a positive thing. And I would hate to go on in this way for the rest of the time. I felt like today was like a great day to celebrate. And we can still keep talking, but the more talking that we do that doesn't relate to the plan, that doesn't relate to the people that you're losing, is a waste of time. And I love kids, and I think you might want to rethink how we can work together. Because I've got a list of things to do back there, and I could sure use some help. So I just wanted to share that. So we are working on a very strenuous grant. It's the CalVIP. It's going to be highly competitive. We're lucky to have this man here who knows a lot about it, who's working with us. My team is pushing their work aside so that we can raise money to make this effort the best that we can be. And I am sure that the cities that had success also had issues too. We hire kids every summer and they mentor the kids. Maybe some of you should apply for those jobs because you're intelligent, you're involved, you're educated, and that's what we want. But we are doing our best, and I think that the council, my boss, the chief of police, we can only do so much. We gave you a chance, and I wish you would give us a chance because we need your help. And I think it can come across in a way that's much more positive. So, and I'd be glad to talk to any of you about it. So, on January 22nd, we have to have a very compelling grant application, and it's during the holidays. But my staff is stepping up to the plate. They're saying, we'll get this done, we'll do our best, Teresa, it's going to be great, we're doing it for the community. I would love to hear that for you. Because that money isn't going to go to me. It's not going to go to senior citizens, it's going to go to the youth. And we think you are so important. So I don't quite understand some of the backlash that's coming. I'd like to work with you, and I think it would be great. So I guess I just had to get that off my chest because today is a day I felt like celebrating because we came together as a community. One of our fears was, will they keep coming? We're working really hard. Will they keep coming? We are so fortunate to have a group of 30 professionals that probably had to work weekends so they could come to these meetings. And I think we need to just all take a step back and celebrate the plan. And maybe you could help with the grant. What kind of things do you want? So I just wanted to share that with you. And there's a timeline back there. If there's anything you'd like to do, call me. Help me out.
Ms. Rayburn, can you give the list of the task forces, of the technical task forces that we have put together and people have signed up for?
So it's prevention and intervention.
Can I have you at the podium? I need you at the podium.
It's the pillars of the plan: prevention, intervention, enforcement, and reentry.
Okay, and we ask anyone that wants to sign up for those, they can.
Yes, or call me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Cohen, did you want to make any comments about where we're going? I know we do community-based policing right now. Could you make some comments? You have to stand at the microphone, please. Thank you.
As I'm sitting here, I'm hearing J and K. I think I heard it a few times. So J is schools and K is community policing. And every time I heard K and I heard that the youth want to increase and enhance the relationship with the police department, inside my voice was saying, yes, so do I. That's awesome. I don't know how we say no to that. Whether I'm not in control of the words that get put down on the plan and how that process works, but you can call me. I happen to work with our community services unit, and I think together we can strategize and put our heads together and figure out how to do that. Part of the plan or not, there's no denying that's a solid, noble goal. We share that, and let's do it. You can reach me at extension, write this down, 1234 at the police department. Literally, that is my extension. I invite you to call me, and we can collaborate on that goal.
Thank you. Let me explain something, and I get the feeling people think that we were excluding youth. When we put together this task force, and here at the council we voted on who would be on it, it was the head of different departments in the county as well as in the city. And I really have to thank the county for, like, Bev Taylor is here tonight, our sheriff, Steve Lavanino, Peter Adams' office, and people at the county level. And the reason I needed those people, and they have life experiences, they have the education, they have gone through programs, they know what works, what doesn't work, and the resources that they can bring to the table. We also needed to put together the resources that were here in this community. Not everyone knows what is available in this community and what works in this community. What works in Santa Maria does not necessarily work in Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo. So we needed all those people together to put a plan together. I have never excluded any of the students from talking or from speaking at any of the forums we've had and any of the meetings we've had. And that is all in our plan, because that is very, very important. And then I met with a group of students, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago. The schools, we're city council, we don't tell the superintendents what to do, but we certainly are going to relay all this, and they were part of the two superintendents, Mr. Onaveras and Mr. Richardson, were very instrumental in putting this plan together. And I will make it very, very clear to them that the students want more interaction. So I just wanted to clear that up. It's not an exclusion. It's just to get all these forces together that have the knowledge that we desperately need. A few years ago, I had a friend of mine that was a judge in town and called us all together, and that was the beginning of Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley. She did not know all the resources we had in town, and she was a judge, and she was seeing kids as young as 10 years old in her court, and was asking a bunch of us in the community to come together. And that was one of the first things we did, because none of us knew all the resources. So we need to have those people at the table to tell us what we have, where we can go. They've already had the experience of what works and doesn't work. So with that, any comments from the council? Or motion, or whatever?
Well,
Ms. Waterfield?
Well, Madam Mayor, and I just want to congratulate everybody involved in this Mayor's Task Force endeavor. I have been able to attend many, many of the meetings and sat as an observer, and it's just been incredible with the people that have been brought to the table. Not only, those that you had just mentioned, but those were decision makers that if anything came down, they could give you a yes or a no. They knew exactly what was going on and how and what direction they could lead you in. And everything was for you children. It was for the youth. It was to make this community better. And sometimes you have to put it down to a family unit where the mom and dad talk together first when they make the rules of the home, and then they let the kids know what's going on. This is how I pretty much saw what this task force was doing, is that the decision makers were coming together to make a great plan for what was best for the kids. I know myself as a child, I may not have liked what my parents placed in front of me, but it was for the good. And I look back and I think, wow, that was great that they took that opportunity and that time, the resources, their money, their effort to make the best out of the kids. And this is what this Mayor's Task Force is. It's all about you. It's all about getting you better educated, making better choices, understanding what's out there in the world, because there's so many hidden things that you don't see now that those that have sat at the table and have been in places don't want you to go through. And sometimes that's hard as a young person to understand that. But know that every effort that has come from this task force is because of you and to make you guys better. So, don't row backwards, row forward. Keep on going forward. I've always said, as long as you put that foot in front of yourself, you're going in a forward motion. Sometimes I even put it down to crawling, because I've been there. Even if you're crawling on your knees and going forward, you're still making great progress. So don't row backwards. Go with the people that have been there, the maturity, the understanding, and the ones that understand what's out there in this world. It's all to make you guys better. So I hope you start rowing with the Mayor's Task Force. Thank you.
Mr. Cordero.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to compliment all of the young people that spoke. I know that that is probably not everybody's forte, especially so young. So I'm quite proud of every one of you that chose to get up and speak. I think that a lot of what was said by Ms. Rayburn and the mayor are some of the things that I wanted to comment on. And one of the things that Mr. Armenta said, and Armenta said that you can do anything you want to do out here, but if the parents don't buy in, you probably got a program that's weakened at best. And I agree with him on that. So I think one of the first tasks that you young people need to do, there's a little over 50 people in here tonight. I know that because I counted them. But there's a little over 50 people. If every single one of us went out and got one more person, we'd have over 100 that were fighting for the same kind of thing. The buy-in from your parents or those who are the adults in the home that you live in is going to be vitally important. It's going to be very important that there's a consistent effort by the adults in their lives and the lives of these young people that we're trying to reach out to. You can't do it without some consistency and the home participating. I think about what Ms. Waterfield was just saying, my youth, and why did I escape that? Why did I not go to prison or get arrested for violent things? I'll tell you one thing, it was unacceptable. My dad said no. And you didn't, I found it very difficult to go against him. He just had a command presence about him. I wish I had it as good as he did. He would just say something and it was done because he was involved. And it's going to take that kind of urging for our young people to want their parents to be involved also. We're not going to be able to give it all to you. We're not going to be able to take each and every problemed youth and turn them into doctors, lawyers, council people, or anything like that. It's going to take everybody in the community to come together and work very hard at involving all of us. I think, which one of the president's wives said it takes a village or something to raise a youth. And it does. It does. You're going to have to get the parents involved. The other thing I want to emphasize that was said on Mr. Olivares' part, who's done this before in many communities, not just here and where he lives, and it's working there. And they did a similar arrangement that we've done. So let's give this thing a chance. Let's put some legs on this program. Let's meet and confer on a positive basis so that we can work together and learn more about what's going on from the other side of the fence, from where you are and where your friends are. I know that there are people out there that are in your minds that say, if I could only do this, that my friend Javier would feel better about himself, or so-and-so would feel better about herself. And that's only going to come from you folks as you grow up and as you get older and you take on more responsibilities. No youth, no future. Or we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be putting the effort out. With regard, I don't agree with Mr. Armenta in the sense that it's a lot of doom and gloom and it's not going to work. I think it can work. It can work, but it's going to take a lot of hard work on the youth of this community to get their parents involved. And if your friends are not getting their parents involved, help them. Help them. Get their moms and dads to come to a program. Get them to come to something. Get them to come to a council meeting. Anything like that. You yourself should come to more council meetings and see what's going on elsewhere in the community. Educate yourself. I speak every year at the El Camino School, and I started this well over 30 years ago. And when I first started doing it, one of the common questions I would ask is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there was always the football player and the basketball player and the soccer player and the policeman and the fireman. Those were all constants, and they're still there today. And then I would ask, how many are going to college? And 2, hands would go up, 3 maybe, 4 if I was lucky, in a whole classroom. Well, I still do the same thing today. I don't know what the school district has done, but if I go there today, they still have those 5, the policemen, the firemen, this kind of thing, but now they want to be doctors and lawyers. And for whatever reason, a lot of the young ladies want to be veterinarians. I don't know why. They've taken a whole turnaround. And when I ask how many people are going to college, it's the other way around. Almost every kid in the room, if not every kid in the room, raises their hand. They're all going to college. So there's a transition taking place somewhere that is assisting our young people and at least putting that thought in their minds. And you're here tonight. You have an interest, a desire to work hard. You too should be helping your friends to put that thought in their minds. And once again, I thank you, Mr. Olivares, for all of your effort, Eddie, yours, and the mayor for putting this thing together. I think there's hope here, and it's going to come to fruition if we all work hard at it and pay attention to what's going on. Thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you, Mayor.
With that, Madam Mayor, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Waterfield?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2017-135 to be adopted, approving the strategic plan for the Mayor's Task Force on Youth Safety.
And I would second that motion, Mayor.
I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2017-135 in a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Yes.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Okay, we will go back into the agenda.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Before
Mr.
you-
Hayden.
Before you continue, I just wanted to take a moment to thank not only the participants of the task force, there's over 30 professionals and community leaders that were in the task force, but also the public that came to each one of the meetings. As you mentioned, the City Council did listen to all their testimony. They took that in consideration in implementing the strategic plan. But a special acknowledgement to Mr. Olivares. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Olivares helped us during one of his most difficult times in his life. For those of you that don't know, Mr. Olivares is a resident of the city of Santa Rosa. He's actually a city council member for the city of Santa Rosa. And so during the devastating fires that Santa Rosa had, he still found the time to not only fulfill his role as a city council member for the city, but also actively engage this community in helping us finalize that strategic plan. So on behalf of the city staff, we'd like to thank Mr. Olivares for his diligent effort.
Yes. Weren't you a police officer also? Yes. That's a honorable position, sir. Particularly being a lieutenant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olivares. Really appreciate that. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you and when we join the, have we joined yet the California Task Force?
We're going to get the grant done first, but I think that's the grant.
So, okay, so we'll get the grant done. So the grant you said is due the 22nd of January?
Yes.
And then, and when do they announce it?
The Executive Steering Committee will review all the applications, and it will be very competitive, and they will make the announcement sometime early spring because they want to start the funding cycle on May 1st, so it's going to be fast. They're not going to be waiting for the fiscal year, so it'll be happening fast. I think the advantage we have is that you have a plan hot off the press, the momentum is here, and others may be scrambling because of the holiday season. It's a short time frame, so I think we can take advantage of that right now and hopefully get a nice, stellar application into the state.
Okay, and again, thank you very much.
Is there a specific amount, or do they award the grants based on what they feel?
It'll be a maximum of $500,000 per city, but you will be required to pass through 50% of that to a community-based organization.
I see. Thank you.
It's not a problem. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, can you read back to number 6?
The City Council will conduct a public hearing and consider extending urgency ordinance number 2017-16, imposing a temporary moratorium on accessory dwelling units.
And staff report is being made by City Attorney Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You have before you tonight staff's recommendation to adopt an ordinance extending the expiration date of the moratorium on accessory dwelling units. As you know, an accessory dwelling unit is a smaller second residential unit in a single-family residential zone. The council approved an urgency ordinance on October 17th. The moratorium expires 45 days from the date of adoption unless extended by the City Council by a 4/5 vote. Unless the council acts tonight on the temporary moratorium, it will expire on December 1st. The moratorium may be extended for a period of 10 months and 15 days. The council may recall that there was recent legislation requiring all cities to approve building permits on a ministerial basis. The moratorium is intended to maintain the status quo to allow staff the opportunity to study and make recommendations to the City Council for a permanent ordinance. You also have in your agenda packet a report required pursuant to the Government Code, which describes the measures taken by staff to address this issue. The staff will be making additional recommendations for additional conditions to be placed on accessory dwelling units at your meeting on December 5th, and you'll be presented with staff's recommendation for a permanent ordinance. Extension before you tonight is required to bridge the gap between December 1st, when the moratorium expires, and the effective date of any new ordinance that the council passes. If the council elects not to adopt any regulations on moratoriums when you discuss the merits on December 5th, at that time, the council can extinguish the moratorium and allow accessory dwelling units pursuant to state law. That concludes my staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Trujillo? Dr. Moats?
So, the state of California is just wiping out the R1 designation for housing. Is that correct? I mean, no longer can you have one house on one lot. You have to have more than one, or you can have more than one?
I think that's a fair statement.
Well, that's an absolutely horrible idea. That's terrible overreach from the state of California. I think we should do anything we can to obstruct this as much as we can. So I vote for obstructing it as much as we can.
Do I have a second? Oh, no, it is. It's a reach from the state. They keep doing it. And then people complain to us because there's no parking on the streets already. And there's too much trash, the trash cans all over the street.
And there's too much noise.
And there's too much noise, yeah. Yeah.
I think that Movember mustache has turned Mr. Dr. Moats into a rebel.
Oh, shoot.
But if there's no other discussion, I
have to ask for written correspondence.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We have no written correspondence, but we do have two requests to speak.
And two requests to speak. Can I guess? We have Mr. Armenta and Gary.
Yes, for those of you at Ernest Stephen Armenta, for those of you at home and are still watching TV and have the funds to hire plumbers, electricians, carpenters, painters, roofers, sheetrockers, and cement masons. You want to invest and build another another extension onto your property. Listen to Jack Voisin and to Dr. Moats and Mike Cadero and Mrs. Waterfield. And then you make the decision come November of 2018, right? I think that's when your term is up, somewhere around that. And then we can decide, ladies and gentlemen. You own the property, ladies and gentlemen. I say make no decision and wait till December 5th, and then you guys can, but it's clear you guys already set on it, or at least Dr. Moats is. We have people that have the funding. And just imagine in this hard economic times, we have people right now that have the funds that want to hire carpenters and roofers. That's what we want. We want people to make some money. We want people to go to work. We got property owner says, I own a piece of property. My neighbor has nothing against it. to the left and to the right and across the street. The only one that has a problem with it is Dr. Moats that doesn't even live by me. He's not even resides even in our district. But this is how it's going to work. So I'm opposed to it. I say let it lapse and you guys don't make no decision. But it seems that you guys already made your mind before public comment. But mark my words, come election time, is just another check on those who are going to want to be reelected. And sorry to say it, but that's you two. They get a free pass. It's you two are going to be held accountable for every decision you made during this financial crisis. Hey,
Thank
we'll
you.
see ya.
I didn't say it. I opened this up to a public hearing, but I did, and Mr. Armenta spoke. Thank you, Mr. Armenta. And Gary Crabtree. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Crabtree.
Yeah, it's been 3 hours. No one's counting, though. My name is Gary Crabtree, and I'm a real estate broker and developer for over 40 years here in Santa Maria. And I have two hats. When the state came in and decided that they were going to issue this, on the hat of being a homeowner, and with the mentality of, it's a good idea, but not my neighborhood. So then I read about, they'll have the deed restriction. So the deed restriction will make the determination that that they will cut down on the amount of this dwelling units being provided, because they're going to implement a deed restriction that says it can only be rented out and as long as you live in the home. And so on one hand, the state is saying, well, we are short hundreds of thousands of houses and we need to implement this plan so that we can produce more housing at an affordable rate. And so I applaud them on that, but then you have the restrictive end of it. So you get to the point of where, well, does this make sense to develop this from a developer standpoint? And I have decided to go forward with trying to implement this on the 5 lots that I've bought because of the shortage of housing here in Santa Maria and around California. And tried to, I went to the Planning Commissioners meeting on the 15th and listened to all their input, and they voted 3-2 for staff's recommendation to implement the ADU rules across the board in the city. And I want to commend city staff for having to come up with what they've done on a short period of time. It's very difficult. But I think on December the 5th, you're going to be the ones that are going to make the final decision, and your Planning Commission has already voted 3-2 to implement what the city staff has asked for. And I think with that proposal, you really don't need to have an extension, especially an indefinite extension that puts it out possibly months, when you're going to make that final decision on December the 5th. So if there was going to be some form of an extension, I would feel that it should be limited to December the 6th. So by that time, you will make the decision as to whether it's going to be implemented. And on item 1056 or 1052, I can't remember what it is, that will draft the proposal, ADUs will be law. And whether we like it or not, whether we want it personally in our own individual neighborhoods, it is what it is. And we cannot circumvent state law. And so I believe that it's in the best interest of this proposal that if you're going to do an extension, that you limit it. You don't make it open-ended and put it to the December the 6th. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree. I'd like to close the public hearing, bring this item back to council for discussion or a motion.
Mr.
Cordero.
Thank you. Mr. Trujillo, if I'm not mistaken, you said that the extension could be 10 months and 15 days? How do we get the 15 days there? I don't know. But you also said that if a decision is made on the 5th, we can stifle the extension. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the 10 months and 15 days comes from the government code statute that governs urgency ordinances and moratoriums.
Okay. So we have the ability to put the extension in the event that we have something that is incomplete for us on the 5th. And if it's not, and we can vote as Mr. Crabtree suggests, then we can stop the extension at that time.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Well, with that, Madam Mayor, with the understanding that we are going to see a staff report and recommendation on December 5th, I would move that we, the motion that we pass ordinance number 2017-20, extending.
It's been moved and second to adopt Resolution 2017-20. Was that it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's been second. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield? Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Moving right along here, item number 8.
The City Council will receive a financial report for the first quarter of 2017-18, consider budget amendments, and an update to the city's conflict of interest code.
Thank you. Staff report is to be made by Director of Finance, Ms. Harvey.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, and public. Tonight, I will briefly present the quarterly financial report for the first quarter ended September 30th, 2017. I'll be primarily reviewing the general fund and enterprise funds. The beginning fund balance of $10,069,000 is the unaudited balance at July 1st, 2017. Concerning city revenues, through the first quarter of the year, sales tax receipts are $187,000, or 3.5% greater than the first quarter last year. Although a few businesses have opened at Enos Ranch, the majority will not be open in time for the holiday shopping season, and most of the revenue we expect to receive from Enos Ranch businesses will be a redistribution of sales tax from other existing businesses within the city. It is important to note that while the city expects to see a modest increase in sales tax revenues, it will come nowhere near the increase in pension-related expenses anticipated over the next several years. NHIS revenues is at 50% of budget at just over $200,000, with an annual budget of $400,000. This compares to receipts through the first quarter of last year of $1.2 million, or a decrease of approximately $1 million. This significant decrease is due to Winsett Farms, who completed their excavation project last year. Staff anticipated this reduction in revenues and reduced 2017-18 estimated revenues down from $1.3 million to $400,000. Fortunately, Chevron's San Luis Tank Farm project picked up considerably during the first quarter, and staff is projecting that, sorry, lost my spot. Staff is projecting that NHIF revenues will be over $700,000 by the end of December. With that said, very little, if any, revenues are anticipated during the rainy season, January through early March. And while NHIS activities for the fourth quarter are too uncertain to predict at this time, it is unlikely that this revenue source will come anywhere near the previous 3-year average of $2.1 million. Permit revenues is at $811,000, or 31.2% of budget, and is a 2.3% increase compared to the amount received during the same period last year. With respect to the general fund expenditures, they are at 23% of budget. Staff feel confident that with the existing vacancies that we are on course to realize $2 million in salary savings that were included in the 2017-18 mid-cycle budget to help address the budget deficit. However, our expenditures are still projected to exceed our revenue estimates by $3.7 million. Overall, general fund revenues are approximately $450,000 less than last year at this time, and expenditures through the first quarter of 2017-18 are over $500,000 more than last year at this time. That equates to almost $1 million variance over the previous period. Concerning Measure U, revenues through the first quarter are on budget at 25.7%, or $1,156,000. Expenditures are at 26.4%, or $1,196,000. Through September, roughly 84% of expenditures were public safety related, with 36 spent on fire operations and 48% spent on police operations. So the vast majority of Measure U funds so far have been spent on public safety activity. As for the enterprise funds, the Water and Wastewater Fund revenues exceeded expenditures by $3.6 million. Expenditures included the semi-annual debt service payment of $779,000 of interest on the 2012 refunding bonds. The remaining principal and interest portion of $3.8 million will occur in the third quarter of the fiscal year. For the Solid Waste Fund, revenues exceeded expenditures by about $800,000 or 2% more than the first 3 months of the prior year. In conjunction with the first quarter financial report, staff recommends 8 budget amendments for council's consideration. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Harvey? No. Madam Clerk, do you have any written correspondence or requests to speak?
We have one request to speak.
Mr. Armenta.
Ernest Stephen Armenta. Mrs. Harvey, excellent presentation. But if I was looking at your report here, and I asked the question, please direct me where the AB 1600 fees are. Where would I find them at?
The AB 1600 funds are not shown in this report.
I would make a request from Mr. Hayden and Mr. Stilwell. I've been calling you, that the next quarterly report that you shall, that if you can, produce the actual number in your report, AB 1600 fees. The total amount paid or collected and the total amount of AB 1600 fees that were waived. Okay? I think that's important, at least for me. Maybe not the public, but I think you should report that. That should be part of your finance director's report. Second, can you please direct me where the total amount of sales tax received?
Okay, it is.
And then you can.
It's on page 2.
Page 2.
And if you look down at the bottom right hand, sales tax on that chart, and it says
yes.
The amount received is 5.5 million, almost 5.6 million.
Okay. Now, this is my understanding, Mr. Hayden, Mr. Stilwell, and my Honorable Mayor, and Mrs. Harvey. This is how it went. Councilman, we had a member of the legislative body, Councilman Cordero. He stated that we waive AB 1600 fees at the front, and then we make up for it through sales tax dollars. That's what he was stating. Now, if I look at your report, are any of the sales tax dollars of, what was it, 5 million, 5.5 million? Are any of those sales tax funneled, filtered, or are any of those sales tax actually AB 1600 fees? I'm going by what he said. We waive them in the front and we make up for them in sales tax dollars. So are any of those sales tax dollars AB 1600 fees?
No.
Mr. Hayden?
I could I could answer that.
Okay.
And the content that Councilmember Cordero was mentioning that in was based off of a discussion about possibly waiving AB 1600
Yes.
fees in the future. So that decision has not been made yet. That decision will be coming forward for council's consideration at the next city council meeting, at which we would be able to provide a analysis as to what it could be if we waived the fees
Yes.
from that perspective. But as of right now, we have not waived any AB 1600 fees, so they would not be reflected in any of the sales tax. I'm sorry, I'm out of time.
Okay. Let me. As you can see, the direction I'm going here. Okay. So if the sales tax, if we waive them up front and we make up through the sales tax dollars. Now, if I got this right, Mrs. Waterfield, Mr. Hayden stated that AB 1600 fees cannot and are not used for payroll, right? And that's pretty clear. But sales tax dollars are. Sales tax dollars go into the general fund. And where does payroll come from? If I'm not mistaken, Mrs. Patino, it comes from the general fund. That's where payroll comes from. So what we have is AB 1600 fees funneled, filtered, and laundered and becoming sales tax dollars, which are used for payroll. So my position is very simple. Mrs. Harvey, if I was respectfully request that at the next one, and let's put it this way, any waived fees shall be reported in a public presentation. And that's my request on this issue. The next, if you would allow me one more minute, right here, we have it. We changed our finance department secretary in the finance department as a confidential employee. This incumbent handles very sensitive information, or this is page 3. Sensitive information including citywide payroll information as well as citywide budget information. Now, Madam Chair, if it's public tax dollars, shouldn't it be public information? Because if I got this right, I believe it was on the finance, I believe it was our new assistant city manager from Lompoc has stated when he was the Lompoc administrator, said that there is really no confidentiality regarding payroll. It's whatever the legislative body members say it is, the council members. So I'm going to make this point right here that all payroll and all financial, every transaction regarding public funds shall be made public. And that's the only one that can make that decision is you and the 4 council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Any further questions, discussion? Mr. Boyson?
Have we closed the public hearing?
Oh, I've closed the public hearing.
With that, Madam Mayor, I would move for the adoption of resolutions number 2017-136 and 2017-137.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2017-136 and 2017-137, and a second. Any
Second.
further discussion? I already have the second. Yeah, thank you, Dr.
Third.
Moats. That third's fine. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield? Aye. Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next item will be a report by our city manager, Mr. Hayden.
Thank you, Mayor Patino. Before I move on to the report of the city manager, I just want to acknowledge our finance director, Mary Harvey. Excellent report. She did a great job on that. She's one of the hardest working department heads we have in the city. And the reason why I want to bring it to your attention is because we're in crunch time right now. She's closing out the books. The year-end audit is coming forward. Year-end payroll, W-2s are coming forward. She's getting geared up for the 2018-2020 budget, and she's actually understaffed. You know, her right-hand person resigned to go work for another city, so we're doing a recruitment right now. And so I just want to acknowledge her. You know, thank you, Mary, for all the hard work in getting out this report. So it's in a mix of other highly competing other priorities that she's had.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harvey. Thank you, Mr. Hayden.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, your next City Council meeting will be 2 weeks from today, the 5th of December. There's a number, well, actually, there's only a few items on the City Council agenda. We will have, for Mr. Armenta's interest, the growth mitigation fee program will be coming before the City Council on the next City Council meeting on the 5th of December. We will also be having, for Mr. Boyson's information, we are putting forward the accessory dwelling units that will be coming forward to be able to discuss that, the impact that it'll have on the neighborhoods on that one. We also have a presentation on a retirement resolution for a yet to be named, name's not on here right now, so yeah, his name's escaping me right now, but I will say that this will be my last City Council meeting as your city manager. The next time you'll see me, I'll be sitting on that side of the rail. So I've proceeded over 150 City Council meetings here in the city of Santa Maria as your manager. Over 500 sitting behind you in those seats. It's truly been an honor and privilege to work with everybody here. And I just wanted to say I appreciate the faith that everybody had in me, and then also my staff. Excellent staff. I appreciate everyone's hard work and dedication. The work ethic of your employees is unparalleled. They are the most hardest working employees that is on the Central Coast. So that concludes my staff report. I will leave my other comments to the meeting of the 5th. I will remind the public that College Drive should be opened in another 15 minutes. So we'll have another north-south traffic corridor that can be open now. It will relieve some of the congestion that we have on Bradley. Thank you, Mr. Khan and the streets crew for getting that open. Reminder, the tree lining ceremony has been moved from the first Friday in December. It will be going to the 2nd of December. It will be Saturday night just before the Parade of Lights. It will be at 5:20 out in front of City Hall, followed by the Parade of Lights going down Broadway. And then lastly, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. So that concludes my staff report.
Okay, so we're doing the Tree of Lights
We are
lighting.
working on the logistics.
You are, and the timing and
and
everything.
the timing and
thank
everything,
you.
but we do have it right now at 5:30. Mr. Posada is shaking his head yes, but we are working on the logistics because we do know the council wants to be here for the lighting ceremony, and then they have to get into
The parade,
their
yeah.
parade at the same time. So
Okay.
I understand
buzz.
we're float number 138, so.
Are we really? We're float 6, I think.
Okay. Next item is oral reports of council members. Mr. Cordero, let's start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Only a few things. I attended a swear-in at the police department for a couple of brand-new officers. The blessing of the room, the unit over at Marion Medical Center, and I had the pleasure of attending Ms. Waterfield's announcement. That's it for me, Mayor.
Did that too.
Dr. Moats.
On November 16th, I attended the economic forecast at the Alisal Ranch, and I also attended Councilwoman Waterfield's campaign announcement.
Thank you.
Ms. Waterfield.
On Wednesday, November 8th, I attended the Celebration of Life, which was an awesome birthday party for young people of 90 and 100 years old. And in that audience, there were 5 100-year-olds. And I was so impressed because when they called their name, they quickly stood up. And sometimes I even have a hard time standing up, but that was great. After that, I went over to a Salute to Veterans luncheon that the veterans put on, which was very nice. It's always a great time to honor veterans at any time, but that was wonderful. On Thursday, November 9th, I attended the Marion Regional Medical Cardiac renaming to the Sue Sword Cardiac Center, and that was an excellent, awesome event. She's done so much for our community. After that, I went over and attended CTE or CET's tiny houses and got briefed on the tiny houses that they're hoping to push throughout the city of the Santa Maria for homeless. On Saturday, November 11th, I attended the Veterans Celebration over at the Veterans Hall, and that's always a nice one. I tell you, Grizzly Academy always does a great job in saluting our veterans and doing everything they do, along with everything else. But the Pioneer Band was there, Santa Maria High School Band was there, and it was such an awesome day to celebrate the veterans. Then on Monday, November 13th, I attended the swearing in of 2 new police officers. On Thursday, November 16th, I attended the Kettle Kickoff for Salvation Army. That was their first annual, and that was awesome. Then went down to the Alisal Guest Ranch to attend the UCSB Economic Forecast. I'll tell you something personal that was just absolutely awesome. On Saturday, November 18th, my son and his girlfriend came to Santa Maria, and we had a early Thanksgiving dinner. And then my husband and I had the honor of him proposing to her. He did it in front of us. And I got to tell you, for a son to choose his parents to propose was just, oh my gosh, it was just awesome. And I am the proud mother-in-law of a wonderful, wonderful young lady. And so that I'm just so excited about that, as you can tell. And then on Monday, November 20th, I did make my announcement for re-election, and I thank everybody that was there. It was a very nice turnout, and I look forward to the upcoming endeavor. And that was it.
Mr. Boyson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My only 1234 reporting is that I did represent City Council at the Investment Oversight Committee, our quarterly meeting with our financial advisors. A couple of things that I would like to bring up. I have been in contact with Ken Dahman with the Santa Barbara Bike Coalition. A couple of things that we're working on. One, we're going to set up a meeting with Mr. Khan, myself, and Supervisor Hartman's office to see about trying to do a collaborative effort on paving the levee for a bike path from Santa Maria to Guadalupe. Perhaps looking for some grant funds to accomplish that. Also, Mr. Dahman is working on a bicycle event to coordinate with one of our Downtown Friday events, where we've closed down some of the streets to only bicycles. It's been done in different communities. Down in LA, they've done this, and over a period of several years, and they actually, last year, they had over 100,000 bicyclists attend. It was, he liked it to, it was like the cars on the 405, that many bicycles in downtown LA. So a couple of exciting things there. Obviously, I don't have any passion for the bike area, but this I think I can get behind. Madam Mayor, thank you very much for attending our Good Samaritans Turkey Drive last Thursday on the 18th. We received over 670 turkeys and over $20,000 in cash donations that day. A lot of great stories. The one story I would like to, one couple provided us with a check of $500, and their anniversary is right around Thanksgiving every year. And instead of celebrating their anniversary, they donate the $500 to the turkey drive each year.
Wow, that's great.
So,
That's great.
anyways, a lot of other stories. I could go on and on. I would like to end on a very high note. Central Coast Water Authority, as you know, we're working on this contract assignment. We've actually been given the green light by the Department of Water Resources to proceed with our due diligence. And basically what this means is that we need to hire bond counsel to do a study that will demonstrate that assigning the contract from the County of Santa Barbara to CCWA will not impact their bond rating at all. And CCWA actually has a very similar bond rating to the Department of Water Resources. So we're pretty confident that we can demonstrate that. So one more tiny step in a long step, but once we get that formal approval from DWR, it will be the County Board of Supervisors call. So
Thank you. And we'll be looking forward to that green light.
I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you. November 8th, I attended the North County Subregional meeting. I attended the Celebration of Life also with Ms. Waterfield, and then went over to the Salute of Veterans. November 9th, the Heart Center unveiling at Marion Medical was dedicated to Sue Sword, and Sue was there. She has been a woman that has given so much to our community, and such a great woman. That afternoon, the Tiny Houses, Big Dreams was displayed at the Shepherd Hall. That evening, I did the Econ Alliance Future Forum, and let's see, November 11th, Veterans Day Memorial at the cemetery, and lunch at the Veterans. And thank you, Michael Clayton, for doing that every year for the veterans. November 13th, I attended the police department swearing-in ceremony and the LCAP Collaboration Steering Committee at the Santa Maria Bonita Elementary School District. November 15th was the blessing of the Dante Tognazzi Outpatient Services at Marion Regional. November 26th, that was a busy day because that was a turkey drive. I usually like to come in the evening because Hardy Diagnostics has their soup, but couldn't make it, and did the SBCAG monthly board meeting, went to the Boys and Girls Club to see what their renovations were going to look like, and then the UCSB economic forecast. November 17th, I spoke and did a welcome at the Central Coast Rescue Mission Thanksgiving banquet at the Veterans Memorial. And November 20th, attended Ms. Waterfield's announcement of her reelection. November 21st, today, did the Ben Hayes Show this morning, and I met with the new executive director for CAC, Patricia Keelan. Is it Keelan? Okay. You guys, I think you've got a real keeper there. She's very, very impressed with her.
If I had my city council hat on, the ACAC would still be looking.
Anyway, any other comments from the dais?
Only to you, Mr. Boyson, we have done that before, closed off the streets here and had some bike riding go around. It was actually down McClellan, down to Oak, and Miller and Cook Street, and I think Mr. Horak organized that. And I remember standing there watching. It was like a car going by. The bikes were going by so fast.
It's probably
I think
back
that
in
was
1960.
more of a race. We're talking about more just a public event of getting everybody that has a bicycle out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes tonight's meeting. Good night.